Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly Spinner Rack. I'm your host, Chris, and we're going to talk about the latest comic book news. We're going to review the latest comic books. Some pretty big releases like Absolute Green Arrow's debut, a new James Tynion book, Odin. We'll be talking later on about Battle Beast, which I quite enjoyed, and one that I think is fun and maybe under some people's radar, the UK book Action, a 50th anniversary of a really cool comic book anthology from England, as well as a few quick reviews of some other things that I picked up on. We've got some really interesting news to talk about. That's what we'll start with in a moment. And then after I do news, we'll do the reviews, and then I'll just sort of be doodling a little bit and talking about, related media and answering questions of the live audience. So thank you all for being here. Lovely to have this great group. Tell you what, I think that's plenty of preamble to set things up for new viewers. Let me kick on a banner here so that you can see what the topics will be tonight. And you can follow along if you're dipping in or out. And with that being said, why don't we start with the news of the week?
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
All right, there we go. Right? Am I pointing in the right direction? I hope so. It looks right to me. Let me just adjust my camera a little bit so that I'm a little more centered. That's good. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are catching my Mandalorian, well, just Boba Fett, really, hoodie. I've had this for years. I'm glad it still fits. But I did wear it to go see The Mandalorian. I'll talk about that stuff later. Let's get it going with the news of the week, because there's some really interesting topics that I think will spark some cool conversation. Let's get started with the prices on New York Comic Con. So The Beat had, in my opinion, a really interesting article this week talking about one specific convention whose prices are escalating, New York Comic Con, a convention I fully admit I generally have a fantastic time at it for a wide variety of reasons. A lot of it is the social aspect. It is a massive convention. There's focus on all sorts of things, but the prices on it have really been escalating. Let me talk about that a little bit. Hey, it's my buddy Dave. Lovely to have you here. We've got Stepan Sajic here. New Brunswick, Canada. Awesome. I'll be excited to talk to you. And I see tons of regulars here. This is lovely. We're going to have a great time tonight, folks. Happy Memorial Day if you're here in America. So it's the most attended North American comic book convention, just to be clear. San Diego definitely has probably a little more prestige to it. It's been around longer. New York's literal convention center is bigger, and so it's more attended. Not by a lot, but it is bigger. So you combine all that scale, that scope, with the inflation in this country, with the rising costs of every form of transportation, not just transporting yourself to the convention, but the costs of bringing the goods and services there. Very, very expensive. The percentages of a jump, though, are more than any cost of living increase. The VIP pass, I've never got, has anybody ever gotten one of those? I've literally never met somebody that has bought a VIP pass at a convention. But anyway, the VIP pass jumped 13% from the price last year, but 58.5% from the price 2 years ago. It's now like $990, maybe $7 and some change. Almost $1,000 for a 4-day VIP pass where you get to the front of certain lines. That's a lot of money to spend for 4 days of entertainment. I guess something like Disney World probably costs more, but I bet you Disney Sea in Tokyo costs less. Anyway, the biggest increase with taxes and fees built in are the Saturday one-day pass. That's gone up 20% in price from last year. But look at the Sunday Kids. 2025, it was $30. This year, 1 year later, just shy of $50, $30 to $50. That's a 35% jump if you want to take a kid. And there are a lot of kids there, and I think it's fun to bring kids. I've been going since the beginning with my buddy Evan, who I met in college. So we've known each other for ages. He lives in New York. It's been an annual fun thing for us to do while we catch up. And then he had a daughter, and we've been bringing Summer since she was a baby into a toddler. I've got like all these photos carrying her on my shoulders and stuff, because you used to be able to take a kid for next to nothing. But now it's going to be almost $50 just to bring a kid on Sunday. On Sunday. So anyway, you can sort of look at these prices. VIP in 2025, they listed it at $800, but they weren't counting taxes back then, so it was about $875, and this year $990.75. Yes, Bad Crab has an excellent point, and that's just part of what it is. You know, it's a popular event, and while Manhattan is big, you don't want to be too far away from the convention center, so all the hotels sell out, all of them, in the area. Last year, Chrissy and I did go, but we kind of did a last minute type plan. So we actually were pretty far from the convention center. It wasn't too fun, to be honest, to be that far. But, you know, it's good. Look, some of this is, there's something called elasticity, which means, you know, the market is going to charge what it can charge and still sell out. And I get that, right? But obviously, the more expensive it gets, it means that it literally changes who's going to the convention, who can afford to go. I can still get, you know, a pro badge or a press badge. Now this year, they've actually launched something called a creator badge, which costs significantly less. So I'm in rarefied company there. I have a good time at it. But it's going to get to a point where the only people that can afford it are going to be rich jerks. Oh, yeah. If you need rideshare stuff, they do that. What is that sort of flexible price increase that they're like peak driving, so it costs more. It's rough. That said, look, you can still take the subway, and that's still pretty damn affordable. It's getting to that point. Yeah. Disney World prices. I haven't been to a Disney here, like, you know, in LA or Florida for several years. And I guess the prices have really gone up there, like a lot. You can probably go fly to the Japan one and pay to go there for less than flying to, say, Florida and going to that Disney. I bet you anything. And I'll tell you something. The Disney in Japan is easily the best of them. But anyway, getting away from comics, just starting with something interesting topic. I recommend checking out Comics Beat for the full breakdown. It's interesting analysis. I'll talk a little bit about Robert Kirkman's upcoming book. Kirkman and a bunch of other people, but Skybound and Image Comics revealed their words, wicked. Hey, buddy, that's some wicked piece of artwork there. Yeah, we're all of a sudden all Bostonians. Anyway, some new variant covers for Terminal #1. Listen, though, who they got. Bill Sienkiewicz, Rob Liefeld, Frank Miller. Those are some pretty big names, as well as, of course, the series artists. They're going to rotate story arcs with 3 big artists, Andy Kubert, David Finch, Art Adams. Interesting. There's the Liefeld cover. I don't know. He still sells comics. I like this one more. But there's the Liefeld one. Issue 1 is going to be oversized. It's going to be 32 pages. The story, if you don't know, is by both Robert Kirkman and Joe Casey. And I think that's kind of cool because Joe Casey does have more experience writing team books. This is a team book. Kirkman's written, larger casts, but, team book, all I can think of is his Ultimate X-Men run. And technically Walking Dead was a big cast, but it was all about Rick Grimes. What's the book about? A secret war being waged across the world by two violent forces with superhuman abilities who blur the lines between good and evil. There is the Frank Miller cover. This is some sort of weird bug monster guy. Looks almost like a mask, but that's just literally what the guy runs around in. Some sort of little bug guy. Honestly, I kind of like that. I think that Frank Miller's modern way of drawing with, just big blocky shapes, simple lines, I think it kind of suits this character design pretty well. Yeah, I like it. And there also, of course, hey, it's a new book, right? Of course, there's a blind bag for issue 1. It says it's going to have all those covers, that I just showed you, the 3 guest artists as well as the 3 regular artists. Some more that they haven't announced yet, and 4 mystery items, and I don't know what they mean by that. I can only assume it's still a cover. Like, I don't know what else you could put in a blind bag, but whatever. Yeah, I don't know if I saw it listed, to be honest, now that you say that, but that is a good question. I think they did a pretty good job. There's some gradients in there. I think that Frank's artwork has always benefited from an overall relatively flat coloring style. And this probably didn't even need this much variety, and it might have looked better. Sienkiewicz colored Frank Miller's cover? I put that one in the middle so that you saw it most briefly. Yeah, I think Frank's art benefits from a flat. It's not meant to be painted. It's meant to be evocative of something. It's using big shapes. There's a sort of a roundness to it, but it isn't meant to be literal or real. That's an interesting idea. Watercolor. Yeah. Huh. That's a really interesting idea. Stepan, something like what Peach does on her covers, something a little more gentle. I like the idea. I really do. Well, I mean, it's drawn by Frank, so that's all it is. Oh, Sync means Alex Sinclair. I did not know that. Thank you for the extra information. Okay, Alex Sinclair colored it. Watercolors does sound interesting. Wait, did I say Kirkland somewhere? Some people are joking Kirkland, but I don't. Did I say it? Did I? Lynn Varley's colors worked until they didn't. I hate to, pick on somebody's creativity, but Dark Knight Strikes Back, the sequel to Dark Knight Rises, that color was crazy. That digital coloring that Lynn did in that was just bonkers to me. I did not like how that looked. But I am curious about this book Terminal. Definitely curious. They've got all artists who've drawn X-Men stuff. Joe Casey's worked on X-Men stuff. So technically is Kirkman. So I feel like it's sort of going to be Robert and Joe's take on some of those ideas. We'll see. That's just a guess. We've got our regular Mets fan, Steve, here. But thank you, Steve. Oh, and you reminded me. I do have. Thank you. You're saying that this is towards some Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Hopefully, you'll forgive me. I have picked up. Can you see that? Dirty Mountain Dew. Dirty Mountain Dew Zero. So 0 sugar here, and this is supposed to be like a Mountain Dew with like a a cream soda taste. I kind of like it. So that's giving me some caffeine to power through this show. What else do we got for news? We'll talk about one thing that I put in the thumbnail in the headline here. Rob Liefeld. Can I do the coffee song? Technically, I can. Will I? I guess people seem to like it. So,
コーヒーを飲みましょう。コーヒーを飲みましょう。
let's drink some coffee. I got to practice my Japanese yesterday at work. There was an older couple that was Japanese. I just went for it. I just introduced myself and explained my role and asked how they were doing, all that stuff in Japanese. Guided them through a bunch of signing in Japanese and learned a little bit about them. And then we pivoted back to English. They've been living here, I guess, for 50 years, but he's a retired sushi chef. He's opened something like 7 restaurants over his lifetime, and his family still runs a restaurant in Kyoto that's been around for over 100 years. So pre-war, it survived the firebombing, and they sell nothing but unagi, eel. I thought it was really interesting. Thank you. Bought it. My students said tasted like cake icing. I don't think it's that sweet, but I don't know. I was indifferent to Dirty Mountain Dew. So was my dad. Well, I always say skoshi, a little bit, but enough to, with patience, have a conversation. And it was really, really nice. It was really, really nice. I did. It's not coming to me off the top of my head. It's short. It starts with a K. I wrote it down somewhere. I'll find it. Anyway, that was a big tangent. Sorry. Sometimes the show's about me, the host. Sometimes. Let me talk about this. So 2 years ago, you may remember, Rob Liefeld had announced he was going to write a book, a memoir, a tell-all autobiography about his life. He was going to call it Robservations, just like his podcast. But it was announced this week that he's actually canceling it. I don't know how you feel about that. I would have read a book about his life. Liefeld also shared that he returned his advance fee for this to Ben Bella Publishing. They were the book publishers for it. The book was going to be about his entry into comics in the 80s, the people that he knew, the business, the wild times about founding Image Comics, the ups and downs of Deadpool, getting that developed into a film. I think that would have all been interesting stuff. Yes, it would have been his perspective, but I would still find that interesting. In fact, I'll tell you this. If Rob ever decided, instead of doing Youngblood and the occasional Marvel or DC gig, if he stopped doing like little gag strips and he just wanted to do autobiographical comics, I would care a lot less about the artwork. And I bet that would be the most interesting thing possible. I am not being in any way sarcastic. I think an autobiographical comic that he wrote and drew, I would be all in for. I think it would be fascinating. I would too, but breaking in the 80s and some of the companies he worked with, like Malibu and DC and Marvel back then, that would have all been interesting. This is fair. He is kind of known for not finishing things, right? And also kind of weird that it took 2 years from when he announced it to saying I'm not going to do it after all. Who knows what happened? Anyway, Liefeld explained that he was inspired to cancel the book after hearing the Rolling Stones' Mick Jagger. So he's sort of comparing himself to Mick Jagger, but saying that Mick Jagger explained why he has never written an autobiography. Rob paraphrased, "Why would you look back when you can be in the now and look forward?" Totally get the logic. I still think it would be an interesting book. And I don't know. I find myself a little disappointed, to be honest. I really do. I think a memoir by lots of important creators. Could be very interesting. I don't know. I don't know. You know, why is he announcing this now? He's had 2 years. Did he write any of it? I don't know. I don't know. Probably we'll never know. The journey is the reward. There we go. That's a very positive thing to say. Moving forward. I'll do some more Image news. ICV2 announced that Universal Distribution has signed a non-exclusive worldwide distribution agreement with Image Comics, specifically for the specialty and hobby market. I'll give you some more details, but this is fallout from the Diamond bankruptcy. Image broke away from Diamond back in 2023, as many did. They went with Lunar, who they're still with. That's for the direct market, comic book stores. And then they use Simon & Schuster for the book market. You know, your places like Barnes & Nobles. What's another chain of bookstores? I'm sure there's tons of mom and pop ones in everybody's town, but all of a sudden, that's depressing. I literally can't think of another chain of physical bookstores. When I was a kid, there was Walden Books and Books A Million, Borders, Barnes & Noble. There were a lot of bookstore chains, but I can't think of anything. Anyway, Universal, if you don't remember, it has come up when we've talked about Diamond's bankruptcy, but Universal is a Canadian comic book distributor. They also sub-distribute Penguin Random House stuff in Canada. And they're breaking into the U.S. market. They're making inroads into the U.S. market by serving the game and hobby store market. But they do sell comic books to those markets, which I think is kind of cool. They expanded a lot of that when they bought Alliance Game Distributors from Diamond. That was a piece of Diamond that they bought, a game company, not video games. We're talking tabletop game distribution. So that helped give them bigger inroads into the U.S. market for all sorts of game and hobby stores, and they can sell comic books to them. This is the first time, by the way, in Image's entire history that they haven't been exclusive to one distributor. So kudos for Universal for, at least making things competitive. I think competition is a good thing for the industry. Just thought I'd pass that on. But we've got all sorts of juicier news. I'm going to keep this going. This was a random thing to have come across. Scott Snyder was on somebody's Whatnot stream and gave us some news. So Scott, if you're not reading it, he is the writer of Absolute Batman. He also oversees the Absolute line. He's basically an editor of that subset of DC Comics. He was on the Dark Lord Collections Whatnot stream 2 days ago, I think it was. And he talked about the line. They did an interview and stuff while they sold books. He revealed that DC is very sensitive to not oversaturate the line with too many books. They're trying to do it pretty slowly. I think that we can see that. It started with 3 main books. They did Absolute Martian Manhunter, but that is going to end at 12 issues intentionally. They've got an Absolute Green Lantern, Absolute Flash, and now they're going to have Absolute Green Arrow, but that's a miniseries, and Absolute Catwoman. It's a bunch, but over like the period of almost 3 years, over 2 years anyway, not too bad. Not too bad. So they're trying to be selective. I think this was from, if I'm remembering right, issue 37 of one of the volumes of Swamp Thing, one of the more recent ones. I just grabbed it from that. Anyway, Snyder did add, though, that with that said, that they're trying to be selective, not do too many books, that there are pitches for 2 books that he really likes, that he thinks could work. They're not a done deal at all, but he likes them, so maybe it'll happen. Absolute Swamp Thing and Absolute Constantine, or Constantine, really. I think if they do one, they should do both. I would be very interested. especially in Swamp Thing, to be honest. I think that starting from the ground up with the idea of a swamp creature, that would be very interesting. Constantine, I feel like, would really not change a whole lot. I don't know how much you could change about who Constantine is and still have him be him. Would that work within the absolute universe? No question. But I don't know how much you could really change him to, you know? But the absolute Swamp Thing does interest me. We'll see. Snyder also teased that we could see a version of Firefly in his absolute Batman run. I think Firefly's always had potential, rarely interests me all that much. I think an arsonist villain makes a lot of sense for a detective crime fighter guy. Firefly's good, not great. I liked how Firefly was used in the recent Batman Dark Patterns by Dan Waters and Hayden Sherman. He had a role to play in a 3-issue story arc there. It was pretty fantastic. I'm up for the idea of starting from ground zero and building up a Firefly. Well, okay, that is something I hadn't really thought about. Constantine as Swamp Thing, I have to admit, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Or merge him with somebody like Etrigan the Demon, right? Like, how interesting is Jason Blood? Etrigan? Yeah. So maybe there's something that you could do with that. Either way, the absolute line leans a little more towards horror than the mainstream DC Comics. So I think both of these characters could fit within that vibe, that tone very easily. I like the idea. Absolute too much coffee, man. I'm down. Yeah, they could. I mean, they've already created an absolute version of Poison Ivy. And if she was Swamp Thing, that's a original enough idea that I'd be into, potentially. We'll see. They didn't hint at like what the pitch was, just that there were pitches for those two characters and that Snyder said he liked them. So that leans towards more of a possibility than not. Amazing Spider-Man number 1000 is coming up, and for some reason, this is the main cover. This is not part of my news, but I saw this cover, and I often really like John Romita Jr.'s art. I often really do. I made an episode about how I like it. I don't love this. I feel like this pose to me looks like somebody is squatting on the toilet and giving double middle fingers to everybody that's watching. Like, I could so easily Photoshop in a toilet right here and change his fingers to be middle fingers. It just looks like somebody just like taking a monster dump to me. Maybe I'm crazy. I just don't love that pose. It's not my favorite, but I'm here. He's squeezing. He's really straining. That's what it looks like to me. Let me talk to you about what's actually in this issue. So Marvel announced a bunch of big names are going to be in the book. All right. It kind of honestly reminds me of what they've done with the recent Marvel DC crossovers, how there's a main story and then like a bunch of big names telling small stories to make you want to buy it for one of them. That's what it's going to strike you as. I guarantee it. The main story. It's going to be introducing a new villain called Ravage. There has been a Ravage in Marvel Comics, Ravage 2099 by artist Paul Ryan, writer Stan Lee. I believe that was the last new character he created for Marvel. But anyway, so this is a different version. And Ravage will be in it, and presumably they're going to move forward that mystery of Peter Parker's new secret relative. Sorry, that one kind of snuck up on me. That's what I think, EJ. He just does not. I don't know. To be in midair like that, I'd almost take this pose if his feet were on a brick wall, and instead of like looking straight at him, we could turn it to a 3/4 view. I'd go, cool. He's on the wall, slinging some webs that he's about to swing on. But when he's in midair like this, he's The main story is by the regular team of Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz, but here's some people that they've got working on it too. Additional stories by John Romita Jr. He has a huge history with the character. Frank Miller, little unexpected. Peach Momoko. Stuart Immonen and Brian Michael Bendis working together for the first time since they did their Ultimate Spider-Man run. Dan Slott, written more Spider-Man than anyone. J.M. DeMatteis, severely underrated. Best thing people know him for, Craven's Last Hunt. He was a good Spider-Man writer in the 80s and 90s. Patrick Gleason did the pretty iconic cover. That's where you see Spider-Man's mask made out of spider webs. Great cover. Marcos Martin did a lot of Spider-Man stories with Dan Slott. And making his Marvel Comics debut, screenwriter Noah Hawley. Obviously, Hawley did the Legion TV show based on the Marvel character, and now he's show running that Alien TV show, which is all owned by Disney. Yeah, J.M. DeMatteis did do Moonshadow. Exactly right. So I don't think that they're trying to get like every big name creator that's worked on Spider-Man, but those are some pretty big names that have worked on him, except for Peach. I was definitely surprised to see Peach rolled in, but good for them. Yeah, that Noah Hawley is, and Fargo, of course. Yes. I'm curious to see what he would do with a short Spider-Man story. I didn't know that. He's making a Far Cry show? Okay. Miles has grown a lot since his inception. Miles is a good character. Marvel's very lucky to have, in my opinion, Miles Morales and Kamala Khan. Those are both really good characters. Are they derivative? They are. Are they still interesting? I think so. That does sort of ring a bell. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. Yeah, so we'll see. That's enough people. Like when you put in Peach and Frank Miller, Stuart Immonen, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm curious enough. I'll pick it up. I don't know if I'll stay with it, but I'll probably pick that issue up realistically. Here's a quick one. The upcoming Insomniac game Marvel's Wolverine was announced to come out September 15th. So that's pretty darn soon. I was surprised. I thought that thing was still in development, but I guess it's about to be released. Marvel's promoting it with a special cover featuring artwork by Jock, and Jock did do the official art for the video game. So I like Jock. I think that that's kind of cool. Just to be clear, issue 25 of Wolverine is going to have that art, and it's an homage to volume 2 of Wolverine, issue 50. That was by Mark Silvestri and Larry Hama. This just features artwork from the video game. I don't know if the cover is going to be die cut. Like back in the day, this one, that was die cut in the 90s. So you opened up this file and it showed Wolverine battling, I want to say the robot was called Shiva. I think Shiva. But I like that it's not a literal, like sort of tracing of the art. It's just following the idea. I go, okay. I don't know. I like it. I like Jock. I hope it's die cut so that you open it and you see the full Jock artwork. It was Shiva. I'm glad I remembered that right. If it isn't die cut, I'd lose a lot of interest in it. Yes, that's a gimmick, but I'd just say it's not much of anything without that gimmick. Honestly, as far as gimmick covers go, I think that's part of why I put this in here was just, I think this is one of the better gimmick covers of the 90s. There were so many foil, embossed, holographic, chromium, and that stuff was kind of shiny and cute, but there were only a few gimmick covers that I thought were really cool. This was one of them. The die cut, and it wasn't the first comic to do die cut, but it was a good die cut cover. It served the story. I also think that the glow in the dark covers for Ghost Rider and for Spectre were both really, really cool. I think that both of those were good use of a character that benefits from the glow in the dark theme. That one I would call one of the worst gimmicks because it's a little interesting that you can open up Forceworks and it folds out like an origami to be sort of like this big pop-up cover, but you'll never be able to fold it back. It's way too complex. Way too complex. Was it Ghost Rider 15? I don't remember the issue number right now. There was also a really good Spectre cover that was black and white. Not black and white. Glow in the dark. Glow in the dark. That would be cool. It's just that I think they already started by having Jock work on the game. I think that the game designers hired Jock as compared to Marvel being directly involved originally. I hope it's good. Insomniac generally makes pretty good games. The footage has looked good. You never know until it comes out. You never know. I hope it's good. I don't know if it was the first, but the first one I ever saw for a die cut cover was issue 2 of The Tick by NEC and by Ben Edlund. Yeah, this is coming out September 15th. We've got more news. Kickstarter. That was a big piece of news for me last week. Everything changed real fast with the Kickstarter. So 2 weeks ago, Kickstarter launched a mature content creator guide. It basically, the bottom line, it was banning not safe for work comics. And they even started canceling certain projects that were even halfway complete. They blamed their payment processor, Stripe, saying that Stripe has certain rules. They don't support adult content, so Kickstarter was going to crack down on comics. You couldn't even put people in lingerie. It was a no-no. This week, they completely reversed course. Everything is back to the way it was. Everything. Sean Lowe, the chief operating officer at Kickstarter, released a statement. Our goal with these updates was to give creators more clarity up front so they could make informed decisions about their projects before launch. The actual impact was the opposite for some. More confusion, more uncertainty, and real fear that a platform that you have counted on to provide space for your creative expression was turning its back on you. You deserve better. So we're going back to the drawing board, and yes, that means we're going back to our previous rules. They reversed course completely. Completely. The only thing I want to point out, Kickstarter did warn with this update that Stripe could theoretically still end a campaign. Stripe could say, we're not going to allow this to be funded. But Kickstarter's saying they're not going to preemptively step in and guess that that's something Stripe could do. They're backing off and saying, we'll see for how long, but if they reverse course this fast, I bet that they felt an impact. They must have felt an impact to actually make a statement and literally reverse course that fast. That's a big deal. That's a big deal for a company to do. There are other platforms out there, and why is Stripe so puritanical? What do they care? I don't know. It's so weird. I think a lot of people did message Kickstarter. Payment providers being content monitors is just beyond ridiculous. Totally agree. It's look, Do you want to say that, I don't want to be involved in drugs or human trafficking? Sure. But if it isn't rising to the level of a crime, what do you care? What do you care? It's so weird. Yeah, Stripe has some really gross people behind it, but they're massive, and I don't know how you fight it. I really don't. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that on. So if you or someone you know was considering Kickstarter, got a little scared, well, it looks like Kickstarter felt some sort of a push. I think it's an example of us having our voices heard, another follow-up from last week, I was talking about how one of the Eisner nominees was a book that had an AI page in it, the Stardust book. Well, that book was removed from the nominations, I guess by the editor of the book itself, but still, that's no longer in contention. So both of those things reversed within a couple days, and I bet you anything it's because people were making their voices heard on social media, messaging them directly, watching videos like this potentially. So, yeah. The top comic campaigns sometimes aren't even necessarily adult, but maybe they've got like an incentive cover that has some nudity or something. And honestly, whatever. Plus, I don't think having nudity necessarily makes something pornographic. There are levels here. Hey, sister, nice to see you. I think overall, the comic community is literate and they're into creativity. So I think that there is an overall net positive. There's an overall progressiveness to comics readers. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I am saying that I think that overall pretty darn good. Oh, NSFW means not safe for work. It's just a pretty simple way of saying, content that might offend some. And sometimes it's adult because it's made for adults. Not everything is meant for every age group. You see that in so many other countries. There's so many countries in Europe and in Asia that will make books and movies and comics, and it is aimed at a specific demographic. Now, if other people like it, great. But it's aimed at that demographic. I swear to God, here in America, we're like, we have to hit all 4 quadrants or it's not worth doing. I don't know. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. But I think that this is, for now, a net good. Is it completely stable? Let's give it a few weeks to see what happens. But I think we're doing better than we were last week. Oh, and as long as I'm talking about crowdfunding campaigns, I've got an update on the George Pratt Kickstarter. George Pratt is a painter, fine artist, but has done a bunch of covers and art for comic books over the year. And he was doing a book that was crowdfunded through Kickstarter, and it kind of fell apart in the last month between the artist and the guy that was going to publish it. Just to jump back, I'm glad Sunstone did so well recently on Kickstarter. You're in good company you're in an elite company. You could go to other places. There's probably other publishers that would have done it if you couldn't find a way to crowdfund it. Probably. I'm glad you were able to do it the way you wanted to. I'm glad that it was successful. I'm very happy for you. And I want that opportunity to be there for other people too. Because I think crowdfunding is a very legitimate and positive way that people can take control of removing barriers to entry in comics. They can release their comics on a good scale. All right, but let me talk about this George Pratt Kickstarter thing. We finally have some clarity this week on what happened behind the scenes with George Pratt's crowdfunded art book. It was being published by a publisher named Tripwire, run by a guy named Joel Meadows. Why did it all fall apart? Well, Joel Meadows of Tripwire wrote a huge essay basically explaining the behind the scenes things. I don't think it went the way he hoped, because he laid out the cost for the book, and that's all well and good. And he was arguing that, like, George Pratt was trying to do extra pages and make it all hardcover, which was adding to the costs. Well, George Pratt, to be clear, replied, yeah, but I found a different printer than what Joel was going to use in China that a bunch of other buddies who've done art books and comics and stuff have used. Great quality, really affordable. We could have made every book hardcover instead of softcover easily within the budget. So they each have, a different way of looking at it, but I'm way more on George Pratt's side than ever before. Listen to this one quote that Joel Meadows had. I paid myself $22,500 over 12 months as the campaign's publisher and operator, well below the roughly $3,000 a month industry norm for running a Kickstarter. What industry norm? I'll be honest. I've got a lot of friends that have done Kickstarters, and sometimes it does well, and sometimes they actually lose money. But I'll tell you this, I don't think anybody gets paid until the book is published and in people's hands. And then you look at what's left and try to do what's best. What's this whole thing? I paid myself. Like, the campaign shouldn't have even taken 12 months, but the whole time he was paying himself a salary out of the funds they collected. Just to be clear, this is a campaign that raised $55,000. And he's like acting like that this is defensible. Like, that's almost half the budget there. That's almost half the budget you were taking on a monthly basis. I mean, it added up to this total. I'm not saying he took that every month. That is a massive chunk of the cost to produce the book. I get that it took a long time, but there's no way you were putting in 40-hour work weeks on it. There just isn't, because otherwise it would be done. It's just crazy. Pratt returned all the funds that he was given. He was given about $20,000, but he just refunded all that publicly. So, and he's going to pay, like, he'd hired like an editor and book designer to help him with the book. He paid that like about $2,000 or so out of his own pocket. And it's just like washing his hands of this. Tripwire says that they've begun to do partial refunds with the amount remaining for people at the lower levels. So, yeah, it's almost definitely not going to get to be published. People are getting refunds. Just a bad look, in my opinion. And I have nothing against Tripwire before this, but I just don't understand why somebody felt they should be paying themselves sort of a monthly salary for this. That I don't think a crowd-funded book becomes a business of its own automatically. I don't look. Maybe I'm wrong. This is all just my opinions, but I think it's a mess, and I don't get it. Yeah, exactly. You took $22,500, then you were going to publish the book, which probably would have cost realistically, I think, like, seeing how many they had to do. I want to say it was like 800, and it was like about a 500-page book. Who knows? I forget the exact numbers, but it was they both did estimates. It might have been around $30,000 just to print the book. It's bonkers. I feel like he did. He's like, I paid myself less than the industry norm, but I don't know what that industry norm figure is coming from. I'm sure that some people have been paid maybe $3,000 a month for managing a campaign, but I feel like that's at the end of the day. Running the Kickstarter means that, like, they were going to be responsible for the promotion of the book and the actual printing and distribution. They were taking on all those tasks, but yeah, my buddy Jim Mafood was like, I know George. George is like such a nice, honest guy. There's no way he's like taking some funds from like a campaign and running with it or letting it fall apart. He's like, this is a bad situation. And I was like, well, I trust Jim. So Now, all I can do, though, is I'm literally giving you a piece of the quote from Joel Meadows. I don't get what he's arguing with that. I don't get how... I feel like I've known so many people that do campaigns. You know who does a bunch of campaigns for comics? Jimmy Palmiotti through his, I think it's called Paper Films, right? That's like his company for doing crowdfunded campaigns. Jimmy has done a ton of crowdfunded books, and he's posted that people don't get paid until they use the funds to print and distribute the books to the people that paid them. And it's like, I think that's how you have to do it. Because people are fronting that cash for something. I think you've got an obligation to them first. I think that your first obligation is to fulfill the campaign. And hopefully you can make some money out of it. But I think the first obligation is fulfilling a campaign, not to yourself. I'll have to read that. I don't think I read all of that. Your Honor, I may not know too much about contracts between two parties involved in a crowdfunding campaign, but I do know this. Where I come from, if you pay me $1, I give you $1 worth of product. Yeah, there's a risk involved in crowdfunding, but that risk shouldn't all be on the people that are donating the money. And the risk shouldn't all be on a creative. You know, there's risk to be shared, but I think that's part of why crowdfunding, instead of just publishing it through a publisher, might not always be the best option. I've said my piece. I think this upcoming Star Trek 60th anniversary book looks like it has some amazing talent on it, so I wanted to talk about it. So September 2nd, we're getting a 68-page Star Trek 60th anniversary special from IDW. Just a one-shot coming out, you know, basically just a few days before Star Trek Day, September 8th, which is, I believe, the day that it first aired on CBS. September 8th. There's going to be a Sulu story by Brian Michael Bendis, first time he's worked with Star Trek. Artist Michael Gaydos, who's obviously worked with Bendis on a number of projects. I think they did some Daredevil together. They definitely did Alias together. Yeah, very cool. There's a Harry Mudd story. That's a character from the original series. Writer David Gerald, one of the last living writers who worked on the original series. So, yeah, we've got one of the TV writers writing a story for this. He created the Tribbles, artist J.P. Buzio. There's a Lower Decks story by Mike McMahon, and that's a funny guy. He was the showrunner for Lower Decks, and this is the first Lower Decks story we've gotten post-cancellation of that series. Artists Mike and Laura Allred. This is awesome already. Probably Picard. We've got a Star Trek #1 relaunch prelude story. So I think that they're going to do this as an ongoing. Writer Christopher Cantwell, artist Isaac Sanchez. A Star Trek The Animated Series story. That's a deep pull, but look, writer Ryan North. I love Ryan North. I talk about his book, what do you call it? Fantastic Four all the time. I really like his new Flash book with Gavin Guidry. Artist on that is Derek Charm. Cisco. Cisco's interesting. Cisco has a lot more inherent conflict. Yep, the Allreds are from the Pacific Northwest. Exactly. I mean, and with that cover too, there's a lot of variant covers, but that's a pretty cool cover. You get, if folks aren't super into Star Trek, you may not know, but they made one pilot that didn't get picked up, and they later edited it into sort of a weird flashback episode. But this was a different actor playing Captain Christopher Pike. Spock had a different look, still played by Leonard Nimoy. So this is them going through the portal of the Guardian of the Edge of Tomorrow, I want to say. Anyway, kind of cool seeing them meet up. We've got a Worf story, and it's by David Walker and the Escorza brothers from TMNT Last Ronin. An Enterprise one-page gag thing by writer-artist Chris Finoglio. The original series Scotty story by writer Dana Gould and artist Megan Levins. I'm pretty sure that they mean, when they say Dana Gould, I'm pretty sure that they mean writer and stand-up comedian Dana Gould. He wrote on The Simpsons from like 2001 to 2007. Really funny stand-up. Always liked Dana Gould. He does a show I want to recommend to you guys, okay? I want to recommend this. Go to YouTube and look up Hanging with Dr. Z. And what it is Dana Gould has hired really high-end prosthetics people to put him in Dr. Zaius head-to-toe outfit. He looks like Dr. Zaius from the original Planet of the Apes. But then he just is like, his comedian self, and he interviews celebrities. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. Sorry, I didn't quite get it right. The Guardian of Forever. I said The Edge of Forever. Oh, good. I'm glad somebody else has seen it. Hanging with Dr. Z. Awesome. It's on YouTube. There's currently an Indiegogo campaign to fund like a TV version of it with like Will Ferrell as a guest and stuff. Yeah, Hanging with Dr. Z is really special. It's super funny. Anyway. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it's that Dana Gould. A Next Generation Beverly Crusher and Picard story. Okay. Dave Baker and Nicole Go. And Starfleet Academy. A little more modern. Writer Megan Camarena and artists Mari Rowlands, JP Jordan. Anyway, a lot of different Star Trek shows represented. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And a lot of amazing outside-the-box artists and writers that I wouldn't have expected. I didn't expect to see Brian Michael Bendis and Michael Gaydos doing a story. I am blown away that they got one of the original TV series writers to come back and do this. Really, really cool. So just thought I'd share that. Hopefully it ends up being as cool as it sounds on paper. Yeah, it is. I mean, we see that like one of these things is a one-pager. Obviously, there's probably, between 4 to 8 page stories, but kind of cool. Enterprise is represented with a one-pager, but DS9, the closest we're getting is that there's a Worf story that could theoretically be during a DS9 era. Voyager, you're right, not represented in any way I can think of. But a lot of representation for different eras. Here's a cool thing that's coming. Gail Simone's Red Sonja run. Might be easy to forget now, but when it came out, that was a big hit. She had a new take on Red Sonja that proved very popular. It got an omnibus of her run back in 2019, but it hasn't been reprinted since. I went to look for it. You can find it on Amazon for like used, like $280 or something. Very expensive because it's good and it's a good collection, but it's expensive. Long out of print. But Dynamite just announced a new softcover version of it. It's going to come out in September for only $40. $280, $40. This sounds appealing. I think I'll spend less. Thank you. The book is going to include Red Sonja issues 0 through 18, her entire main run, have some extras. It's over 500 pages. Pretty big. Pretty big. $40 for 500 pages? Not bad. The Gail Simone run, if you haven't read it, just to give you a taste, gave Sonja a revised origin, much needed. The original origin was a little rapey. I'm trying to be nice, but it's not nice. She kind of found a much more efficient way to tell Red Sonja's story. Also, new supporting cast, new villains, including pretty popular new villain, her half-sister, Dark Anesia. I might be mispronouncing that. I don't know. I didn't see the movie. But, yeah. I heard that Gail's doing She-Spawn, among other things. I think that they were regular size, but let's see. So that's close to 20 issues times about 20 pages. So that would already get you over 400 pages. So you add some extras, and 500 makes sense. Makes sense. I like Gail's writing. Some of it I love, but I usually at least like what she's done. You know, I don't feel like she's ever had a really bad take or something just feels very fake or takes me out of the story. I don't feel that when I read her books. She's a really good writer. She really is. Comics is lucky to have her. And when she gets to be funny, she's, in my opinion, very funny. I have her novel signed by her because I got to meet her at a convention that she was selling the books for. And you know what? I set it aside and I haven't read it. And I feel bad because I do like her writing and I didn't read it. You were using Croatian math. You ran out of fingers. I'm just making up stereotypes. I don't mean anything. I'm just making stuff up. I really liked Gail Simone's Secret Six and Birds of Prey. I think Birds of Prey was really, really cool. But she's done plenty of good stuff. Oh, that's so cool. I wish I could have gone. Here's one other dynamite thing. I'm a nerd for Buffy and Angel. I just really like them both. They're not perfect all the time, but generally, I think they're awesome. Well, Dynamite Entertainment has revealed Kelly Thompson's relaunch of the Angel comic series. We already knew Kelly Thompson was writing Buffy. She's also going to be writing Angel simultaneously. It's going to feature art by Julia Giacomino. Juliana Giacomino. Anyway, it's going to start with a crossover with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Okay. The book is starting in August after Buffy #1 will come out July 27th. So Buffy's going to set up a new status quo, but Angel is going to be part of the same story continuing from there. Oh, yeah, I do like her Uncanny X-Men run, too. And thank you for the super chat, Steve. I'm always appreciative. I was getting irritated at how it kept getting interrupted with all sorts of crossovers. I really liked her premise. I liked her characterization. It was really frustrating to me. I may come back to it at some point in trade paperback when I can sort of read it more dedicated and filter out some of those issues that just feel like they're getting the main story interrupted. But it was driving me nuts. Apparently, the book is going to be set right after the final episode of Angel's TV show. So it's not like set during or like a reimagining of the high school years or anything. And it's not going to follow after, who had the rights that did it for ages after the TV show that actually had Joss Whedon involved. Was it IDW back then? It's hard to remember. But anyway, so it's going to just say the TV shows happened, then this. That's at least simple. It's been a long time. No, I know Dark Horse originally had it, but when it came time for Joss Whedon to do like official seasons of Buffy and Angel after, wasn't that IDW? Everybody's saying Dark Horse except for one person. It's hard to remember. Oh, that's right. They weren't both at the same place. Thank you for clarifying. That's right. That's right. Okay. Thank you. Anyway, the book is going to feature all sorts of variant covers, of course. Main ones are going to be done by David Nakayama. Awesome. There's one out there by Clayton Crane, but it's redacted. It's mostly covered because apparently it somehow spoils something that happens in issue 1 of Buffy. If you don't know, if you haven't watched this, I'll just give you the gist of it. Angel is a vampire, but he had his soul returned to him. He was cursed by a Romani family that he as a bad vampire killed one of them, and so they cursed him to have a soul so that he would feel like actual anguish and pain. And he'd been evil for hundreds of years. He just had no purpose in life. He felt terrible. He like lived in sewers eating rats for a long, long time until he sort of got brought back into the modern world, helped Buffy, and eventually just decided to set up a detective agency in LA going after like monsters and stuff like that. But yeah, he's trying to balance the scales. You know, he did all these evil things. He's trying to be a good person. Yeah, that stuff wouldn't be canon to this. I read some of that and I liked it, but I'm also okay with them resetting some things. I really am. It's been a while. I'm okay with a reset. Yep, and the Boom Run that had Buffy started with art by Dan Mora very early in his career, and it looked really good, but only about maybe 6 issues before they got somebody else. Okay, not a fan of Angel, but Kelly Thompson, fantastic writer. Kelly Thompson is writing Absolute Wonder Woman, among other books, and I think that book is fantastic. That's right. Yeah. His curse was such that if he ever found true happiness, he would revert. Anyway. No, not exactly. It didn't get sucked to hell. Like, it was like a portal to a hell dimension did open, and the show ends with him and what's remaining of the supporting cast just going into battle that they very likely won't win. But anyway, yeah. I'm going to sneeze again. I liked it. It's sort of a cliffhanger, but it was thematically appropriate because it's all about how the work is never done. If you're trying to sort of balance the scales and do good to make up for like some bad that you've done, that's never really just like, okay, good, you did enough good. Now everything's balanced. I explained the idea of it, but I'm not going to give you all the specifics of it. But also, it's been like 20 years since it came out, isn't it? It's something like that. My sister and I watched Buffy and Angel for a little while there after I got out of college when I was living at home. Here's a weird one. I love when I start a news story like that. Here's a weird one. What's the deal with this? Dynamics Incorporated is a company that works in security and collectible technologies. I don't understand them very well. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute. But they announced the launch of what they're calling the Published Comic Artwork Authentication and Grading Program, which they've simplified to calling the Authority. I didn't know that you could just deem yourself an authority. Your Honor, to testify in this case, I call upon myself as an authority in what is true and what is not true. Their site, theauthority.com, it also lets you get your collectibles like, trading cards, Funko Pops, things like that. You can get them graded and then sell them on their platform. So to me, it sounds like they're just trying to launch their own platform. And, if you sent, I don't know, I'm telling you about this because I would not recommend being an early adopter here, okay? I don't want you to send something valuable of yours to something that hasn't had time to be vetted. That's what the goal of this news story is. Their original art program puts art in a clear slab so you can still display it and stuff. It also has a tracking chip. The company primarily focuses on safety technology for banks and merchants. So I understand the concept of managing your risk by, not putting all your eggs into one thing. Diversifying, they call it. Diversifying. One thing doesn't do well, maybe your other part of the business still is doing okay. But I know they're the authority, so I should trust them, right? They say they're the authority. I'm an expert in throwing knives and comics. Oh, those are the two things you're an expert in. I guess I didn't have anything else. I just want to say I could almost understand it for being a service of some sort for protecting and documenting a really rare old thing, okay? But guess what? That's always existed with special insurance things. Like Lloyd's of London, you can insure anything for what you say the value is, and you could have an insurance adjuster actually appraise it and deem whether it's worth it or not. So for instance, if the next door neighbor died and willed me or put me on trust for their estate, and I go into the attic and I find an original piece of art by Jack Kirby from it was the first page of Captain America. Now I own that. Yeah, I might want to get that protected and appraised, but I don't want to send it to a grading company. I don't want to send it to a grading company. It's weird, man. It's weird. I am not putting this here to recommend it. That's not my goal. Yes, my goal is more to do what Beowulf is, just to talk about how we keep seeing, as the industry is doing pretty well right now, we're seeing signs of speculation and people trying to get into speculation. We saw Logan Paul buy graded copies of manga. And we're seeing like some places buy sealed weekly Shonen Jumps. And now we're seeing like this company try to get into grading something that hasn't been graded before, original art. But I don't need to look at, this isn't good art or anything, but pretend my drawing here was by a good artist. I don't need to look at this and go, excuse me, is this art a 9.8? All that matters is it's one of a kind. It's by an artist that I like. All I care about is it real or not? And then it's up to me to say whether the condition is something I want to own. Very, very strange. Very, very strange. So they're trying to make something happen here, but I don't understand how you could even grade something like this. And who are they have nowhere in any of this press release stuff saying, here's the people that we've hired that can authenticate this. Here are their credentials. I don't see anything like that here. So passing that on. I can't tell you the level of hatred that my fiance has for the full-grown Pokemon men that infest her store. Yeah, I guess Pokemon cards are real popular, huh? Where was I? I think this was a few months ago. I was at the mall. Why was I at the mall? Oh, I went to the bookstore. And there was a Pokemon vending machine. And it was first thing in the morning. And there was like this horde of grown men around it for some reason. And I just sort of walked by and didn't think of anything. And I looked it up later. And I guess sometimes these vending machines, you can just basically buy the entire inventory or something like that. So they were waiting for it to be, I think, filled and then like be the first one to just buy them all. Something like that. I don't know. Yeah, it was a type of scalping, I think. The weird thing is, obviously I've gone to Japan a few times where they have Pokemon and people do collect the cards. I'll tell you this. They're way more organized about it. When there's a new drop, I've seen this happen in Akihabara. They'll have a sign. This morning, we're launching this. People have to get up in a queue, a line, and you get like a ticket or something, and you're only allowed to purchase, like one or two. And that's just how it works. You can't just buy out the store or anything like that. They have two of those vending machines in Haneda. I bet you anything, there's not scalpers just trying to swarm them there. Maybe, but probably not. An absolute Batman 9.8 is not as rare as one I got with spilled sugar-free Mountain Dew. Bah, blast on it. I don't know. Should I CGC for a joke? Oh, you really did spill on it? It's a good gag, but I'd honestly say it's not the best use of your money. Because, like, how many of your friends are you going to be able to show that to that are like, ha, 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 that you'll feel like you spent it well? You gave us the laugh and you gave me $5. Thank you very much. I've got more news. Chachu. What's Chachu? Well, Ms. Marvel actress Iman Vellani. She is proving her bona fides. She is a legit comic book nerd, and I love it. She's going to make her solo comics writing debut with a 5-issue series, Chachu. It's published through Image and Tiny Onion. She has previously written comics, but they were co-written. She co-wrote Ms. Marvel with Sabir Pirzada, who also worked on the show. And I think that's so cool, that she liked her character enough that she leveraged appearing as that character to get to write for the character. Talk about making your own opportunities. And Marvel is really dumb for not prioritizing like some sort of a Young Avengers thing. You've got Haley Steinfeld, you've got what's her name that plays Ant-Man's daughter, Catherine Newton now. You've got Iman Vellani. That's enough right there. But you could throw in a couple other characters. Like, it's crazy to me that they're not prioritizing that as a movie. Because they're going to get older, and at some point they won't like be believable like young 20-somethings, But anyway, here's the premise, okay? Set in 1979, Chachu follows Layla, a 19-year-old Pakistani-Canadian girl with a penchant for film and pulp novels who travels to California, hoping to connect with her estranged uncle, her Chachu, a middle-aged, semi-retired private eye, once famous for marrying the starlet he was initially hired to find. But when his wife mysteriously vanishes once again, the two are forced on an impromptu road trip investigation that transforms her first taste of adulthood into a thrilling confrontation of family secrets, unresolved grief, and the fantasies both she and Chachu have built their lives around. Art, want to shout that out? Mariana Ignazi, who has been drawing in Exquisite Corpses lately. Speculators, though, a 9.8, Abs Bads isn't as rare. Yeah, there's plenty of them that are graded, unfortunately. It sounds fun. It sounds unique. It sounds new. I like crime. I like road trip things. I like, slice of life. Maybe you sent that before I said it. But anyway, I think that's really cool. Good for you, Iman Vellani. I hope it's a good comic. Very cool that it's done through Image, so that it's like creator owned. And Dave, you should have her on a direct edition. That would be a good interview. I like that she really loves comics and that she knows her stuff, Ms. Marvel was definitely one of the best post-Endgame things that Marvel has done, and Iman was a big part of that. I'm still blown away that the Marvels didn't do that well. I think that movie wasn't spectacular, but I thought it was pretty darn good. I laughed a bunch at things in there. I thought Iman Vellani kind of stole the movie. She's funny. I like a character that has some of us in it, in that like Ms. Marvel is a fan of superheroes. That's kind of funny and interesting and a different angle for a superhero. And then to bring in an actress who also loves those same things, it's a good fit. It's a good fit. The show was, again, it was pretty good. It was not spectacular. It was a bit up and down. It's a good character. It's a good casting. She deserves an opportunity to sort of like more lead a project. She's also been in some of the What If episodes as her character. I thought that the scene with all the kittens getting gathered in zero gravity set to a song from the musical Cats was hilarious. I really liked that. The first Ms. Marvel episode was directed by the dudes that made the last two Bad Boy movies and the unreleased Batgirl movie. That's right. That's right. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, they've got Patriot. They've got other young characters. They've got now Speed and Wiccan, right? Well, we haven't met Speed yet, but we basically have him. We've seen a version of like somebody that could basically be Scar, the son of the Hulk, has technically been introduced in She-Hulk. So there's a bunch of like sort of young characters that they could throw together and do their own take on Young Avengers, or at least some sort of a teen team. This one bummed me out. This one bums me out. But Dark Horse Comics announced the closure of their 3 remaining Things from Another World retail stores. So if you don't know, Dark Horse does own comic book stores, but not for too much longer. Their 2 Oregon locations are going to close pretty darn soon, June 30th. Those are both basically in the Portland area, one in sort of, I think, Milwaukee and one in Beaverton, or something like that. They're just outside of downtown Portland. And then the California location is closing September 30th. They've said they're aware of the impact to all their employees, and they're going to try to give them resources to find their next job, but yeah. Well, that is a bummer. I'm sorry to hear that. There are at least still a bunch of great stores in the Portland area, but yeah, it's a bummer. There's history. There's history here. Dark Horse says that Dark Horse Entertainment is refocusing its efforts around creators. I don't quite know what that means, that they didn't really have any specifics. They also announced that they're launching Dark Horse games based on adapting their comic book properties into, tabletop games. That stuff's fine. That's all well and good. But I'll miss these stores. I've been in them before. Good stores. It's a bummer. Store was around before the comics even, just to be clear. Here's a little bit of its history. Dark Horse founder, recently let go by the company that owns Dark Horse now, Mike Richardson. He first opened a Things from Another World store in Bend, Oregon, back in January 1st, 1980. So January 1st, 1980, launched a comic book store, eventually started publishing comics, opened some other Things from Another World stores, really made a lot of it, but did sell themselves to the Embracer Group, I want to say, and I think it's like a Swedish company that owns a bunch of companies. So yeah, I guess they're pivoting onto how they'll use what they've got. But I think it kills some of the personality too. I think that was a connection that they had to the community, that they actually ran stores that carried all sorts of stuff. I think you lose some of your connection with the community by closing those down. That's an interesting idea. Yeah, why couldn't they just sell the stores? You would think that potentially like the store manager or something would be able to get a business loan. I don't know. Maybe it was offered and it just didn't come to happen. I don't know. But it is happening, so I thought I'd pass the news on. If a corporation buys a comic publisher, it's to farm IP and not care for the comics. It's not the first and it's not the last time. Yeah. It's a bummer. Here's one cool thing Dark Horse is doing. It's, the beginnings of that whole shared sci-fi universe, 3 worlds, 3 moons. Jonathan Hickman, Mike Del Mundo, and Mike brain fart. Can't remember the third Mike. Anyway, a bunch of creators have been making their comics in a shared sci-fi and supernatural world that they call Three Worlds, Three Moons on their Substack accounts. Cool. It's going to see print with Dark Horse. I like that. Nick Spencer writes for them too. That's right. But there's another guy that's called Mike that helped start it, and I'm all of a sudden forgetting his name. Shift is the first book here that I'm talking about, and that's by Jonathan Hickman and Mike Del Mundo. For the premise, Mike Huddleston, thank you. Kid Vector, thank you. That was really bothering me that it wasn't coming to me. Set generations before the current science cycle, in a time when magic is at its peak and queso is thriving, Sig the Whiteheart eschews the wishes of his family and the will of the Academy by hitching a ride on a Vojaganto to the center of the universe, Aqua, to understand the cause behind what he believes to be the inevitable collapse of the universe as he knows it. Okay. Comes out March 4th. Wait, comes out March 4th? I got this as news this week. I didn't even catch that part that I copied. Shift. Dark. Did I somehow pick up old news? It says publication date March 4th. I think I made a mistake, folks. I saw it listed. Yeah, they've got it as I'm on Dark Horse's press release page right now, and this is one that just came out a couple days ago, and it's saying that this one-shot Shift is coming out. Okay, here it says that it's coming out September 2026. So I must have found two different press releases or something like that. September 2nd is when it comes out. So sorry for the confusion that I had for a minute there. Changed the March 4th to September 2nd. And these are its dimensions, magazine dimensions, $10. $10. Sorry for the confusion on that. So you know what? I'm just going to blast past it. This is real. Look at this guy. This is one guy. So, a 44-year-old YouTuber decided to follow the exercise routine of the gag manga hero One Punch Man and is receiving accolades for his results. Yes, there was an exercise routine in One Punch Man. It's meant to be a joke because One Punch Man can beat anyone with one punch. So he'll fight kaiju, other superheroes, gigantic mechs. Ultimately, he can beat them with a single punch. How did he get to be this way? He explains his rigorous routine eventually. So Saitama, the protagonist of One Punch Man, is said to have gained his ultimate strength by, it's so funny how he reveals this dramatically, like it's really cool. You have to do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and run 10 kilometers every day for 3 years. But this guy did it. He just decided he'd do it. His name is Tasuke, and his YouTube channel is Tasuke Challenge. By the way, I think it's only got something like 20,000 or 25,000 subscribers. I guess more than this channel, but not more than my Comic Tropes channel. But he did something pretty amazing here. He did this exact routine every day, single day for 3 years, even through a time period where he had COVID-19 and he was stuck at home. He still did the walk just around the inside of his house and did all the other things. And look at how shredded he got. Isn't that crazy? He wasn't that out of shape, but he was skinny and he had a belly. And it's just really funny to me, but also damned impressive. Look, this is not any kind of a routine that you would be given by a personal trainer. They would tell you you need rest days. They would tell you that you have to work, different muscle groups on different days. This is not what a trainer would do. However, it also shows you that if you commit to physical activity on a regular interval, you will see results, which I think is really cool. I ran 10K yesterday, and there's no way I'm doing that every day. He kept it up. Like he posted his progress along the way, and it's pretty damn impressive to me. It's pretty impressive. Exactly. He didn't buy any like equipment, like, weights or, mats or anything. He just did it all at home. It is amazing. It's also hilarious to think that that's what turned Saitama into this superhero that no one can beat. Like, he cannot be beaten. He also lost all his hair. And to be fair, he also said that no matter how hot it is in the summer, don't use the air conditioning. And no matter how cold it is in the winter, don't turn on the heat, and you'll become like me. So pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. That I didn't see any news about. But obviously, if we look at the most recent thing that he posted, he must have been eating a very well-balanced diet of proteins, fibers, and lots of water. He must have been to get like that. Yes, he can beat anyone now. I also hate extreme temperatures. I did not see that he did that part. He just did the exercise part. Maybe that's why he isn't a superhero. He forgot to do the turn off the air conditioning and heat. Just thought I'd pass that on. Maybe you want to check out his YouTube channel to see some of the stuff he does. It is in Japanese, so I don't know how many of you would enjoy it, but yeah, I thought I'd share it. Here's another interesting / kind of creepy thing about a Japanese manga author. So, manga artist Masahiro Itosugi posted that Google deactivated his account after he uploaded some of his artwork to his Google Drive, his own Google Drive. When he uploaded the artwork, gave him a warning that he says he appealed, and when it was rejected, his Google account was instantly deactivated. He said he had a lot of reference, a lot of books that he sells, a lot of original art that he sells and stuff, but it was all in his Google Drive. So what else? Itosugi, who is he? He's well known for a series of seinen, which is, adult, erotic comics. An example would be this one, Aki Sora, which was published from 2007 to 2009. I am going to note, because I do think it's relevant, Japan did ban volumes 1 and 3 in 2011. They released new guidelines under what they called the Tokyo Metropolitan Ordinance regarding the healthy development of youths. What it meant is effectively was that they were cracking down on manga and anime that if the character looked underage, they couldn't show nudity for that. Okay? It was always illegal to actually portray, in any kind of artwork, underage people. But if they even sort of looked like that, they were going to say, no, that's too far for us. But this is an example, whether he's right or wrong, this is an example for us. Your private files, if you upload them online or to cloud, anything like that, they're never really private. Google is absolutely looking at everything you're uploading. So, yeah, back to Dropbox. Use an external hard drive. That's some pretty good advice. I don't know exactly what he would have uploaded that got flagged. Theoretically, according to, the way he phrased it, it was just his old manga. But who knows? He did something that was weird. He did something. So I'm not saying that he's the good guy here, just to be clear. I'm also not going to ever defend big business Google. I'm just saying this is an example of why we should never just like trust that what we upload is private. Oh, well, you just lost all that data that you uploaded. Completely different story. This is so cool to me. Compact Comics. They have been a huge hit. Oh, by the way, I'm talking about Compact Comics here with Judge Dredd. I don't know if you saw this. Marvel announced that they're releasing the Brand New Day Spider-Man comics in a new Compact Comics format that's the same size and price as DC's. You may remember Marvel launched their own version of Compact Comics, but it's a little bigger physically than the DC ones, and it costs like $15 instead of $10. They're changing that. There's a Spider-Man Brand New Day stuff coming out for only $10. But I'm here to talk about the Judge Dredd Compact Comics. Last weekend was MCM London Comic-Con, and publisher Rebellion, also 2000 AD, Rebellion bought it, but same publisher, announced that they'd be printing Judge Dredd in Compact Comics format. Every issue of the original run will be published in black and white every month, starting in January 2027 through to the end of 2028. At that point, they're going to decide whether they want to do a color edition as well. But every month, you can read from the beginning the entire Judge Dredd run for a really affordable price now. Judge Dredd Compact Crimes will be 8.25 by 5 7/8 of an inch. Each volume priced at, well, they say £10, so that might be more like $12 here. We'll see. I don't know yet. There's some incredible writers and artists in those early days. And by the way, 2027, I believe, I should have double checked this since I put it in the news, but I'm pretty sure that's the 50th anniversary of Judge Dredd. So pretty amazing. Image has its own compact line. They are adorable, but too hard to read for my aging eyes. Interesting. I always wondered if that would be a problem for certain people. I have not had an issue reading at that size, but fair. Oh man, I love those Essential Showcase trade paperbacks in black and white. Those were such a good value, such a good value. Were the Eagle reprints of 2000 AD colored for North America? I believe so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I think that was the first time they got those specific issues got colored. I wonder if black and white art would make it easier to read the text. Well, that is a good concern you guys are bringing up. So I'm curious. I haven't read the entire Judge Dredd run. I've got some of his Judge Dredd case files, black and white, big, thick trade paperbacks. But this would be a fun way to get caught up. It's a good price. So as long as it's easy to read, I'm in. I'm probably going to get these. And I love the idea that you could get one every month. Talk about the sort of binge model of manga being brought to these European comics. Yeah, I think so. Judge Dredd, I think, is 50. I think he came out like 77. Let me double check. But I think it's Judge Dredd. Yep, 1977. So I'm right. Next year would be his 50th anniversary. So pretty cool. Judge Dredd's good, folks. It really is. Sometimes it's satirical, sometimes it's action-packed. I'll tell you the biggest trick to getting used to it is in the earliest days, they didn't do much in terms of continuing stories for a little while. And it was only something like 8-page long stories. So it's very episodic initially. And then finally they start telling bigger stories, like the first Block War story starts expanding what you could do with Judge Dredd. And I think I like that pacing a little bit more when they start going to bigger stories. But some fantastic artists and writers over the years. Carlos Ezquerra, Pat Mills, writing, early Brian Bolland, early Steve Dillon, some really amazing people. Just had to pass that on. Angouleme, a little bit of news for the beleaguered festival. So, Angouleme International Comics Festival operator, not the people that are the festival, but the people that have always run the event, the weirdos that have all sorts of weird money troubles and got accused of not treating their employees fairly, Ninth Art Plus. They ran the festival for 20 years until basically a boycott pushed them out. They've entered what's called in France judicial liquidation. That means a bankruptcy. Ninth Art boss Frank Bondeau is suing the festival for appointing a new organization to run it. We've announced that in previous news stories. The Morgaine Group is taking over the event. But the lawsuit has been delayed 3 times. Ninth Art said that they've laid off. Sorry. Ninth Art has said that they laid off 10 employees and they had to end the contract for another 30 freelance contractors. But they insist that this lawsuit has to happen so that they can win a bunch of money and pay their creditors and survive as an organization. When your whole reason for existing is to do this one festival that you're just clearly not going to be given the reins to, what are you fighting for? Just to be clear, I think it's likely that a liquidator will, that's a formal term for who will take over running the company as it's dismantled because it's out of money, it's bankrupt. I think that a liquidator will soon take over and they would have to then foot the bill for any lawsuit, which I don't think that they're going to bother to do because what's the most you're going to win in a case like this? It's not going to get you back to the footing that you had before. I just don't think that's realistic. They'd also determine, even if they did get that money, who gets paid for it. It doesn't necessarily go back into the company's coffers. They've got creditors and stuff that they owe. So I could be wrong. I'm also reading this news translated. So, take whatever I summarize here with a big grain of salt. But I really do think we're seeing the end of Ninth Art. And it doesn't bother me at all based on how these people have carried themselves in these news conferences. I don't think that they've ever once tried to take an iota of responsibility for the allegations against them. All they've done is deny and fight and say that they have the right to run the festival. But when you have an almost unanimous group of artists, publishers, and the government all saying they don't want to work with you, what do you have? I don't know, like an hour ago? Brunson, nice to have you here. Yeah, the idea behind Comic Book Legal Defense Fund is fantastic, and they do have some great history, but they really got compromised with the SA lawsuits and how they handled the people in power at that organization. So they really damaged their credibility. Just to be clear, the woman that worked at Ninth Art said that she was not harassed, that she was assaulted at one of the events. And when she brought those allegations to her superiors and at Ninth Art, she was fired rather than have an investigation. So pretty gross. Last piece of news I have. Also legal stuff. In January, Playmates announced that they would be losing the Ninja Turtles license to make toys at the end of this year. But this month, they may have actually reversed course. Playmates has retained the law firm Reeves and Weiss LLP to, quote, protect their brand. What does that mean? Playmates created the first action figures for Ninja Turtles, and they funded the original cartoon to promote the toys, of course, but obviously that was a big part of what brought Ninja Turtles to the mainstream. And I think, yes, Eastman and Laird created all the important elements of Ninja Turtles, but Playmates did a lot to grow that brand and to create some of their supporting cast and ideas behind it for personality, the look, etc. Just want to say, wow, thank you for this. Retro Days, very generous super chat. Chris, please pick up the Cryptid Core #1 this week. Pretty please? Would like to know your thoughts. I'll be honest, first of all, Retro Days, I hadn't heard about this before. So is this self-published, or is this with like a publisher like, a Vault, Mad Cave, Dark Horse? I don't know. Image, what I'll keep this in mind because that was a generous donation. The Cryptid Core, I'll keep it in mind. Let me backtrack to this news that I was talking about. Playmates is really important. Antarctic. Okay, thanks for the heads up. I'll keep an eye out. Playmates apparently feels that they have some sort of ownership stake. And I'll be honest, maybe they do. Maybe they do. I don't know. TMNT represented 36% of Playmates' revenues last year. Over a third? That's big. If they do lose the license to Mattel, which Paramount announced in February, it would be going to them, they would have to cease making Ninja Turtles toys in December, and they'd have to finish selling any remaining inventory that they had within the first 90 days of 2027. So we'll see. It doesn't really affect the comics, of course, but it's related to the origins of the Ninja Turtles comics. It doesn't really do anything for me to see Ninja Turtles go to a company like Mattel. I like that there's so much history. The Playmates has been making these toys for over 40 years now. I think that they've done an overall very good job with some unique ideas, and they kept the brand alive in a way when there was no TV show or movie really happening. We'll see what happens. That, folks, was the news. So the next step is to review and discuss some of the comics that came out this week. And boy, were there some big releases. I've got some opinions, some good, some bad. I'm excited to share them with you. Bear with me, and I will pivot. I have seen the new Ninja Turtles G.I. Joe toys. If I could get the dial tone Donatello one, I might, but I'm trying not to spend money on myself on really anything extra, so maybe not. Probably not. But I did like it. I did think it was cool as a fan of both franchises. But that said, let's pivot over to, I'll set up the reviews.
Let's review.
Review it.
The review.
The reviews are in. I repeat, the reviews are in.
Go to your reviews.
What? Speaking of bad reviews.
Don't worry about that review.
Let's review all the facts.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
Before we do, let's review.
Those reviews really came out fast.
Maybe we can review some right now?
I'm not going to review all that again.
Now let's review.
Not my worst review.
Let's review, shall we?
To review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
Yeah, I've had it just about enough. Just shifting this around. I'm going to start by talking about Absolute Green Arrow, because obviously the Absolute line is pretty big in comics right now. Yep, comics definitely came out last week. I was looking forward to this one because I really enjoyed writer Pornsock Pichot's book, The Good Asian. Great crime book. And, you know, Green Arrow often is a crime, you know, street level character. We've also got artwork by Raphael Albuquerque, who's pretty fantastic. So what's the difference? What's different with Absolute compared to the mainstream book? The main thing is this Green Arrow is a mystery, first of all, and is killing billionaires. That doesn't necessarily make him the main character, to be honest. He's not the main character. This Green Arrow is the antagonist, but he's also driving the story forward in a very real way. The story instead follows, usual supporting cast member, Black Canary. In this, she's really known more as just Dinah Lance. And Dinah Lance in this was a cop. She was briefly an MMA fighter, and now she's moved on to being an executive bodyguard for well-paying clients. She doesn't really enjoy that work, but she takes it because her father is older and very sick, and insurance only covers so much. So she's basically forced to do some work that she doesn't really enjoy. I think a lot of us can relate to that much. We have to work for our benefits and take care of our family members. So I found those elements relatable, even though it's obviously heightened. She's protecting, big clients like, rock stars at one point when we're introduced to her. And then she goes to work for Hector Hammond, who's traditionally a pretty big, evil, like rich guy in the DC universe. Yep, it is. There's a difference there. We don't necessarily know much about her mother yet in the mainstream universe. Her mother was the first Black Canary, and she took over that mantle. Her father in this, I think, was also a cop. Is alive, though. He's traditionally not alive. But it makes them both interesting. We do get to see plenty of flashbacks to her history with Oliver Queen. And this Oliver Queen became rich not because of inherited wealth, but because he had a good idea. He had an idea to make a stock trading app that allowed anyone to trade. You didn't have like preset minimums and stuff, and they didn't take large percentages or anything. So he was trying to redistribute and spread the wealth, essentially. He's like, hey, power comes from having money. This is a good idea that can make me money, but the goal is to make a better place in the world. And that does align with what we've known of as Oliver Queen. He's wanted to help the little guy. But I did like the idea that he wasn't just sort of from inherited wealth, that he actually came up with something. Even if he's a little bit of a playboy and stuff, he did have a good idea. And he does become Green Arrow in this, and he's already been killed before this book starts. So who's the new Green Arrow? Look, this Green Arrow is like a serial killer that doesn't just kill some of these billionaires, he literally tortures them. These are two green arrows in this billionaire's eyes. And we've got, suspects of who could be this Green Arrow. Hammond's company thinks it could be, Roy Harper or Mia Dearden. They've both been Speedy or Red Arrow in the comics, sidekick. I don't know Tom Holloway, whether he's also been a character in the mainstream books. I didn't recognize Tom Holloway. Maybe that's somebody completely new. Look, the premise is great. The art, I think, is really cool. I like the colors in this for the palette, But I would also argue they're a little too dark. And I have this issue with movies these days. Everything's too dark. It's entirely possible that it literally is somehow a revived Oliver Queen. It's possible. It's possible that it's one of the people that he's had as a sidekick or ally. It's also possible that it's some sort of a copycat that's just trying to take up some of the mantle or ideas that this character had. I love the new mask. Let me see if I can find a good example of that. Some awesome action scenes in this. I guess you can see it best on. There's got to be a close-up somewhere, right? Got to be. Maybe there isn't. All right, I guess there isn't. So I'll see if I can bring this up a little closer, and if it'll refocus. So yeah, he's got a pretty. It's a demonic mask, but there's like angles here. It reminds me of both Oni masks from Japan, as well as sort of that Van Dyke beard that and mustache that Oliver has had in some of the older original comics. Not original, because he was actually clean shaven originally, but like by the 70s. It's good art. I like the premise quite a bit. I find this version of Dinah Lance. Wait, Dinah? Yeah, I think it's Dinah. Yeah, Laurel was. Wait, which one was Dinah and which one's Laurel? All of a sudden, I'm confusing myself. Dinah. Yeah, geez. I got myself completely confused there. Yeah, it's a mystery. It's got badass ninja type action. It's got somebody using arrows for their intended purpose, you know? When you consider what you could do with a bow and arrow, it's a lot like if somebody was running around with a gun but trying not to kill, right? Like Hawkeye and Green Arrow in mainstream superhero continuities, they can do amazing things with bow and arrow, and they're usually like, they're shooting it through somebody's clothes and pinning them to the wall. But realistically, those are weapons meant to stop someone. And in this comic, that's exactly what they do. Oh, yeah. No, I get what they're going for. And like I say, I like the palette. The palette is good. I just felt that there were a few pages where, honestly, I think it's showing up really good here on screen, like with this top down. But I've got a slight angle. So the light here is giving me a reflection on this glossy page. And yeah, like right here, I've got a strip of light that's bright white, and therefore I can't make out the details on the dark on the other side. It looks better to you guys right now. Arrows can be grappling hooks. Arrows can be boxing gloves. Arrows can be computer chips. Arrows can be breakfast cereal. I've always said arrows can be microphones. Arrows can be soda. I did see that. It looked really fun, but the price is like such that I could never afford anything like that, no matter what. Yeah, the absolute green arrow is Luigi. I give this a recommend. That's the end of the. That's the bottom line. I definitely give it a strong recommend. In fact, I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm excited to see more. I'm encouraged by what they've set up. I don't feel like they tried to do too much in this issue, but they laid a good amount of groundwork. And I hope that that groundwork can pay off with some really fun action and mystery scenes. I hope. I did. It was kind of fun. I think I even liked it more than the first one. I always, maybe not always, but just about always give James Tynion's books a try. Sometimes it's not always for me. A lot of times it is, though. This is one that he's teaming up with somebody else writing. It's written by Marguerite Bennett and James Tynion. Art by Letitia Cadanici. And the main character in this is not necessarily that good of a person. She's an investigative reporter who is trying to get into, she's been in like sort of like cults and stuff like that for articles, but she's trying to get deep into people that think that they're Nazis. Well, they are, but she's trying to get deep in and understand them to write an article. And she finally like convinces them enough to get brought along. There's like basically 8 of them, I want to say. And they go on a bus trip up to really far north into like Sweden, I want to say. Anyway, a Nordic country to do a ritual. Their goal is to bring forth a god, and they all do drugs and stuff, and they all have this vision of a stag asking them to follow them. And they do. They follow it deep into the woods, and they're tripping out for probably like days on end. And they dream of ritualistically slaughtering this deer. And then they all wake up from this shared hallucination, and they've done something absolutely horrific. I won't show you or tell you specifically what they did. But while drugged out of their mind, they did something absolutely horrific. Was this actually a real ritual? Is this just them, being bad people and being out in the wilderness beyond what they're capable of and doing drugs? I don't know. I'll tell you, I liked it. I thought that the artwork was clear and consistent. I thought that each character was different enough that I could tell who was who. The panel-to-panel storytelling is good. The colors. Look at how like deep red this all is, right? Like that's not a realistic palette, really. Like there's not like a sunset time where everything is red like that. But have you ever seen the movie Mandy with Nicolas Cage? It feels like you're on drugs while you're watching it. It is so surreal, and it is bathed. It is just washed in red hues all the time. And it makes it very creepy and disturbing and hard to relate to sometimes. Yes, they did. Yeah, that's interesting. Sounds like the movie The Ritual. The Ritual was decent. It was pretty good. I love the movie Mandy. I think it's so good. I think it's just nuts. Anyway, yeah, they're not technically on drugs yet, but we're already sort of being positioned as the reader to feel a little out of it. Anyway, it's disturbing. It's creepy. And like I say, the main character, Adele, she's going pretty far, in this undercover role. She isn't like participating in anything hateful, but she's going to like their concerts and stuff where they're doing like, they're said to do things like stomp on a dog on stage, and she's like pretending to be okay with it. Yeah, there's a little bit of Midsummer to this, a little bit of a culty aspect, and you're just out in it somewhere very, very remote, and you do get the feeling that no matter what's happening, like a best case scenario, a bunch of 20 somethings are lost in the woods. Best case scenario. And you don't get the feeling that there's help anywhere close by or realistic to reach. They're not going to easily be able to get any help. And if this ritual goes forward of actually summoning a god, you get the sense that it would not be a kind or benevolent or god or something that would like gift them stuff. Like the rituals they're talking about, it's not satanic, but it's definitely like, it's a scary take on paganism. It's a scary take on it. And that may not be realistic, but it feels, when you're reading it, it feels authentic. The characters are distinguishable, even though they're all sort of bad. They do have personality from one another and relationships. So I liked it. I'm very excited to see what the next issue is. I got vibes like some of the stuff you guys are saying, like The Ritual, Midsummer, I brought up Mandy, but things with basically cults or tiny groups of weirdos that are egging themselves on to do something horrible. Clean artwork, disturbing color palette, Jordi Belair on colors. I like the colors in this. Maybe even the best colors of what I read this week, actually, just to be clear. Like a nice limited palette that sets the scene. And I know I was just complaining about dark colors on the other book, but I'll also say that Rafael Albuquerque has an art style that has a certain amount of detail, whereas Leticia Cadenici, much more open line work, and so it can handle the darker hues without cluttering or muddying up the artwork. I think it's also appropriate to the tone. These are both, to a degree, horror books, but this is more sort of a crime-focused mystery that has some horror elements, whereas this is flat out like horror. I'm glad I was able to get this really cool variant cover for Battle Beast. It is by the main artist, Ryan Ottley, but it's a very different art style for him. Ottley has been getting more and more detail-oriented as he's gone on with his career, but I don't feel like he's ever been a guy that does lots of cross-hatching to indicate roundness, shadows, things like that, but he did in this one. You can find the black and white art for this on Ryan Ottley's Instagram. It's very interesting work. It's I like it quite a bit. I would be very interested in seeing him go more into doing hatching and cross hatching with more of his artwork. I think it's just very appealing. Anyway, fun issue of Battle Beast. Fighting monsters and stuff, but the end result is that he's going to go up against eventually Conquest, which was a major enemy in the Invincible books. Oops, just flipped clothes on myself. If you look at this, and I didn't have it easy to get, but this is the exact same pose and composition of Conquest's first appearance in Invincible that Ryan drew. It was Invincible here in his blue costume originally, but same pose. And I kind of like that. I feel like that would make sense, that if somebody made their arrival known in a certain way, they probably do that or are inspired or motivated to act like that in a consistent manner. Right. He just does that pose. Hello, worm. Stand ready for my arrival, worm. There's also some slower stuff in the middle here. Character work that makes us care about and understand Battle Beast, his relationship with Prince Salaka, understanding this alien world. Battle Beast is becoming a more and more sympathetic character because he's explained he just constantly feels rage. He cannot control that. And if he's not fighting, that's the only thing that can distract him. And he wants to die. He's miserable. The comic is played primarily for adventure and even some laughs. But there's an underlying sad context to this character, which I think is appropriate. Because, not to spoil anything, but eventually, this is set in the past, basically, eventually Battle Beast dies. I won't say when or how, but he does die. And we know that if we've read Invincible books. So to have that finality there, I think it's fair to have an undercurrent of something sad within the character himself. Because we're not going to end on a totally happy note. So let's be honest with the tone. I feel like there's some really good thought there. But there is some funny stuff with the supporting characters. For instance, Prince Salaka meets this lady who was, head of like military while Salaka was missing for years. And she was going to take over the country, but she's just happy to have him back. And he doesn't really trust her. And they do this thing where they stare at each other's eyes. And I got vibes of Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm, where he just sort of is always trying to look and see if somebody is telling the truth or not. Okay. Who would win, Broly or Conquest? I think Broly is from Dragon Ball Z, so I don't know Dragon Ball Z. In fact, I was preparing for some comic trope stuff where I'm going to talk about a few different manga soon. Not soon, but, in a couple months. And I was like, can I get myself up to speed with Dragon Ball Z to include that? And I was like, nah, it's too big. It's too much to tackle in that short of a time. Interesting. Could Battle Beast regenerate like Juggernaut and Colossus? I think all three have their limits. All three have their limits. Yeah, it makes you feel like in this world, there's probably honestly like a medicine that could like control how he feels. And if that happened, at his core, Battle Beast has some really noble instincts. He made his own home planet safe, but in the process changed who he was, and he felt such a rage that he voluntarily left his home so that he wouldn't destroy what he loves. And in this, he has become friends, even though he doesn't treat him well. He says outright that he's friends with Prince Salaka, and he's trying to help a little bit, but he knows that he just is not long-term a good fit here. Anyway, very fun, but I'll tell you that the real appeal here is beyond the story and the themes behind it. It's Ryan's art. Ryan has really, really outdone himself he's always had a good cartooning instinct. He's built some really great storytelling skills, and he's had an appealing art style that he hasn't lost. There's still a cartooniness to his character design. But what's cool is he's now comfortable rendering things a lot more than he used to when he started. And I like his rendering. He's got good ideas for when to use shadow to separate foregrounds and backgrounds. And he's got some really appealing textures that work well for things from fur to vegetation. Oops, I'm not showing it very well. Like from fur to vegetation. He's got some really great instincts. I think he's becoming a better artist, which is exciting because he's been drawing for quite a while now. I think it did explain a little bit, but kind of forgetting. I got to go back and reread that. I got to go back and reread some Invincible and see what I could find out. Yeah, some really nice, well-designed backgrounds and some choices to use different perspectives here and there. I don't think Ryan, for instance, just faked these towers. Looking at them, I'm pretty sure he's got a 3-point grid to help guide everything and have it consistent. I'm pretty darn sure. Certainly on this page. And that's a somewhat limited background in some ways, but it frames the main subject and it adds a dynamism with like the intersecting 3-point perspective grids. So it isn't all just sort of like a straight on medium shot. We've got sometimes a close up or something, but only when it's appropriate. Look at how he decided to do a close up of Battle Beast's teeth and mouth, like really emphasize the snarl. where he could have just drawn, a medium frame shot of Battle Beast's head, potentially. I think there's somebody that's known his work for a while. Yeah, Uncle Waya was his online screen name back in the digital webbing days. He used a lot. He was on Pencil Jack and some of the other forums, but digital webbing, I know he did a bunch. Yep. Yeah, I like Donny Cates' ideas a lot. I didn't love the idea for Hulk, but it did look great. I think Ryan Ottley was slightly, not majorly, but slightly underserved by the stories he had at Marvel. He got to work on Spider-Man and Hulk, and I think he made them both look fantastic. I really think that they both looked great. He gave it his all. At the same time, I think that the Hulk story was a little too weird and way too different from what had just happened. And Spider-Man was really caught up in a lot of melodrama where Ryan can do that, but he's going to be more motivated to do it if it's serving a purpose, and then you're also alternating with really big, bold action pieces. I have an early page of his, Invincible 10, and it's signed Waya. Are you serious, Dave? Dude, I haven't watched any videos where you go over your original art collection, but you've got quite a collection. I'm jealous. I don't have that many. The last thing I want to talk about in any big detail, and then I'll just sort of give recommend or not recommend, is I picked up this book, Action. This was originally a 70s, 1976, actually, 1976 anthology comic in England. Okay? And Action was meant to push the boundaries, be a little more hard-hitting. A little bit of horror, a little bit of war, a little bit of crime, a little bit of like sports, but hooliganism type sports. And they pushed good taste a little bit. Not trying to be outright offensive, but trying to push the boundaries with what they could do. And it actually very, very quickly, within a few issues, got such a pushback that they canceled it. They did move a couple of the characters into a somewhat similar anthology the publishers were doing called Battle. So they had Battle and Action Battle. Anyway, it's the 50th anniversary. They brought back 4 of their well-known characters for new / slight reimaginings of some of their characters with some really top-tier talent. And I overall really enjoyed the hell out of this. There's 4 stories in this. The first, and here's one really cool thing. If you don't know what I'm explaining and everything, before each story begins, they give you a couple paragraphs telling you when it originally came out, who created it, and what the idea behind it was. Especially since these are relatively short-lived, I think that's really valuable information. Now, this character is called Hookjaw, and Hookjaw is in many ways, yes, a ripoff of Jaws, okay? Here's the key difference. To follow a shark, instead of, a one-time story where heroes can beat a shark, how do you have a recurring shark character? Hookjaw does not have personality really in it. Well, he sort of does, but he doesn't have a voice. I'll say that, okay? What they would do with these stories is Hookjaw would basically kill evil people. Not that was his goal, but that's what the story always was. And by doing so, the writers weren't trying to say that it was all realistic so much as it was a case of nature getting revenge on people. So you'd have criminals, you'd have polluters, you just have generally nasty people out at the sea, and they get punished by getting killed by Hookjaw, okay? And this story is by an artist that I really love. I think he's severely underrated, but I love his work. Staz Johnson. He's worked for Marvel and DC. He's British, so he's done tons of stuff there too. Rogue Trooper and all sorts of great stuff. But the story here that's fun is some gangsters had a ship go down in the Gulf of Mexico. From the DEA shot it up, but there's drugs down there, and the drug kingpin wants to recover them, so he hires a marine biologist and forces him to come up with a way to get down there and get it without being killed by Hookjaw, who's apparently patrolling the waters. I won't spoil exactly what happens from there, but it's really cool. It's a good story, great artwork. I loved it. And if I'm ever lucky enough to recover my Jaws manga, what my goal is I will not just review the Jaws manga, I will compare it to how other comics have treated shark horror stories. I'll have the Jaws manga, I'll have classic Hookjaw stuff from the UK, and I'll have stuff from like Eerie by Richard Corbin. Okay. The next story after this is going to blow your minds if you haven't already read it. Hellman. Who is Hellman? Hellman is a World War II story. Sure, like Sergeant Rock, right? Sort of. But here's the big difference. Hellman is a tank commander for the Axis. Now, the reason you can still follow along and get a story out of this is he has a code of honor. But he's literally fighting for who all of us would consider the bad guys. And to get around that, he would basically go up against, bad people that he worked with or really evil Soviets, things like that. Pretty crazy. Now, this is written by Garth Ennis, who's good at writing war stuff. It's done in black and white by Mike Dory. And Hellman is just sort of a no-nonsense tank commander dealing with some screw-ups and having to fight a big army of Soviets in this issue. It is interesting to see things from this perspective. Ultimately, I can't love it, though. I don't want to be aligned from the point of view of the Axis, I just don't want to. It does feel in some ways like a Sergeant Rock type of a story. The art is good. It was interesting. I just felt like it's a weird idea. It's a very weird idea. But then again, so was Hogan's Heroes, and that treated World War II as a sitcom, and it sort of worked. So I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It was set in the 40s, but it was written in the 80s. The Russians were bad guys, and most of the time, that's, I guess, who they went up against. It's not bad, folks. It's just weird. The next one is something that I feel like we never get a story like this in America, but it focuses on a soccer, or as they call it, football player. It's called Look Out for Lefty, and Lefty is a pretty good athlete who had all sorts of weird good and bad luck, so he would get into all sorts of crazy adventures. But what Rob Williams and Patrick Goddard have done for this story is actually jumped forward in time to assume, what if the comic kept running and we were about 50 years later and he was maybe not quite 50 years older or something like that, but what if he was in his 50s or 60s now and wasn't, a footballer? Like, what kind of a life would he have? How would he still be connected to the game? What kind of shenanigans would he be getting up to? So it's a fun story. I liked it way more than I expected to, because I don't know hardly anything about soccer. I really just don't. But I like this story. He gets himself in way over his head. Now, the last story is probably the one that you'll either love it or hate it. It is another Garth Ennis book with art by John Ennis. Dredger. Dredger was the idea back then of taking sort of what was popular then. James Bond, Secret Agent Man, Man from U.N.C.L.E. That stuff was more 60s, but this was, the 70s. That stuff was still popular. And they were like, what if you had a guy that worked in espionage and stuff, but he was a working class man, kind of a jerk at best. At best. Does look a little like Mel Gibson. I don't think that was intentional in 77. It's Garth Ennis. So imagine the Garth Ennis stories where, I know, it's like The Boys. So how much did you like that satire where Billy Butcher was always basically, easily able to beat someone up to get information out of them, and then maybe he'd go a step further by banging that guy's wife or something like that. That kind of like mean-spirited energy. That's Dredger. And in this, Dredger's partner, who he didn't really like, gets blown up. And Dredger goes on a mission to hunt down the guy that killed him. And he gets information, for instance, from like this guy that's like blown himself up way in the past and is still connected to criminals. It's real mean-spirited, ugly stuff here, where he's just sort of double-crossing people. It's kind of fun. But it depends on how much you like the Punisher Max series and The Boys. It's that kind of energy. A little bit Hitman, but even dialed up more from them. Okay? So I kind of liked it, but I also felt like Dredger was such a son of a bitch that I kind of wanted him to... It was like I used to get annoyed by Bugs Bunny sometimes when I was a kid. I was like, this guy needs his comeuppance. He's always winning. Yeah, I get that thought. I overall did like this issue quite a bit. I loved the Hookjaw and Look Out for Lefty stories, and I would say that I found both of Ennis's stories very interesting, and it made me realize though that I've kind of moved on a bit from how much I loved Preacher back in the day, and that was a little mean-spirited sometimes, where the good guys sometimes are just like, it's so easy for them to humiliate their opponents. Lots of humiliation. Dredger does that. He humiliates his opponents. That part I didn't love. The rest of the story, I did. And I liked Hellman as a war story. I just felt weird about it by the end. But I guess that would be the goal, right? To make you sort of feel weird about it. I used to too sometimes. I would be like, just once, I sort of want to see Tom beat up Jerry or something. Oh, yeah, this is totally Grindhouse. Totally in that spirit. I had fun because I would say that I don't get lots of this in comic book form anymore. Who published this? Rebellion, I believe. Yep, Rebellion. They're the people that do 2000 AD. So it's a Rebellion book. I'm just glad to see them getting to have stuff in the comic book stores here. And I like Hookjaw a lot. I've always liked Hookjaw, but I like short shark stories. Just some quick thoughts on the rest of things. I canceled following Wonder Woman. I don't think it's that bad, but I'm getting burnt out on how every story is narrated or told from the perspective of somebody else. And Wonder Woman is treated respectfully and amazing and stuff, but it's never told from her point of view. And this is her own title, and I got burned out on it. It's great art. I wish I could stay with it longer. Tom King has written some stories that I love. And he's written a few that are stinkers. I heard somebody say, if you get an 8-issue miniseries by Tom King, it's going to give you 8 fantastic issues. And if you read a long run like Wonder Woman or Batman by Tom King, it's going to give you 8 terrific issues. I was like, there's a little bit of truth to that. There's a little bit of truth. I don't think he's bad at endings. I really don't. I think that Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Helen of Windhorn, top tier for me. Love both of those. Love, love, love. I thought Human Target was exceptional. So he's written a bunch of stuff that I like, but I'm burned out on this take on Wonder Woman. No, I don't know. That's interesting. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. I'm curious. I haven't, but I would. I do think that Garth Ennis, he's got some different writing styles. It's not always mean-spirited or anything. I like some of his writing quite a bit. I really enjoyed the first 2 issues of Lobo. And this 3rd issue, I only liked. First of all, I realized the big part of why I like it is I like Jorge Corona's art, but he only does a few pages to frame the story in this. I did get a kick out of this. Lobo is just sort of like hanging out in his hotel room or motel room in his undies. But if this looks familiar to you, that is his original costume. When Lobo debuted, he wore a purple and orange spandex superhero type suit. He obviously does not generally wear that now. He's always dressed up like a biker ever since Simon Beasley got a hold of him. But I found that kind of funny, the idea of him hanging out in this as sort of like, it looks more like Long Johns or something. That was pretty good. I hate that I say so much. Most of this is a flashback to young Lobo. Like, ain't I a stinker? I'm not against this art at all. It's good, but it also feels weird to me that we're only on issue 3. We've got a guest artist and a flashback standalone. It's not bad necessarily. It's just that for an ongoing title, I guess I was hoping it would build some momentum towards one initial story arc, and it was just 2 issues. I'm not against episodic and getting something like a 1 and done or a 2 and done story. I'm not against that. In fact, I often like that quite a bit. But I'd love for there to also be some subplots that like build up to something. I feel like issue 3, we should be introduced to some potential supporting characters. It's going to be really hard to do a book with just Lobo as an ongoing. He's going to need a supporting cast. So I don't know. I found it kind of weird that like issue 3 wasn't quite giving us this. So it's not that I didn't like it. It's just that it definitely didn't give me what I was anticipating. So I was a little let down, but some of that might be my own feelings or They're good together, no question. They really are. Supporting characters are definitely tough in a Lobo book. But here's the thing. Lobo was a supporting character in Legion. So you could have, other bounty hunters or a team that he basically becomes indebted to. The thing about Lobo is this. He doesn't respect anyone, okay? And that's fine, and it's funny, and it's part of his character. But he does also always follow a contract, right? So if he agrees to a contract, he'll do stuff that he hates. He worked for Vril Docs as part of Legion, even though he hated it. So you could get him into a situation or scenario like that. And I'm not trying to tell these guys what to do. I'm just giving that as an example of you could introduce supporting characters. And I hope that they do. I think you need a contrast. You need somebody that you can sometimes root for a little bit more. I like that Lobo satirizes the rich and powerful. I like that a lot. This was a fun conclusion to Peach's jam book. the story ultimately isn't super important. Psylocke was sent on this dimensional quest to get a 7th Infinity Stone for a cosmic being. And all that means is that she got to cross through different worlds, and Peach got to pull together some artists that she really respects. So I enjoy it quite a bit, but I enjoy it primarily for the art. There was never a story that like connected on a big, deep level, but the art's great, and I think it is worth doing jam books like this because sometimes that's just fun to see different people from different with different styles and visions work on a book like this. There's a really fun piece here that shows scenes from a bunch of what happened in the last few issues. And boy, did we have some really different artists, some European stuff, Stan Sakai, of course, Jim Mahfood, Peach herself, Mike Del Mundo, some Natasha Bustos. Really interesting. Really, really interesting. I do recommend it, but keep in mind that I'm recommending it for thinking of it as an art jam book. Yes, I was about to speak on that, actually. I didn't know how in depth that I go, but they reused a little of Jim's panels from his issue 4. They also refer to it, but instead of Jim drawing that, it was Natasha Bustos trying to draw in a Jim sort of style. There it is. Not trying to give it all away, but it's a reimagining of the same splash image that Jim did. It's supposed to be the same sort of character and world, but it's done by a different artist. But to me, that is the fun of a jam art book. And I don't feel like Marvel or DC does a whole lot of that. So I did like that this was more experimental from a mainstream publisher. I like that. Another great issue of Fantastic Four by Ryan North. I'm never disappointed. It does have a guest artist in this that sort of draws in a style a little bit like Humberto Ramos. Close enough that it didn't necessarily distract me, but I also don't think it's as good as Humberto Ramos. At the same time, I like the story, so I wasn't disappointed. It does give you something a little extra at the back for I don't know what reason. There's a short story by Stan Sakai. And I'm a huge fan of Stan Sakai. So seeing him with more of a classic Fantastic Four versus the Mole Men mini story, I was like, that's awesome. That's a blast. I feel like that's a bonus that makes it even more worthwhile. Powers I enjoyed. I think your enjoyment of it depends on if you've enjoyed Powers in the past, but it is a good mystery. Ultimately, Powers primarily rises and falls not on its characters or art, in my opinion, but on how good the mystery is, the twist to the mystery. So far, I am enjoying it. I said I loved the first issue of Narco, and I really liked issue 2. And I do like issue 3 of Narco. This is a mystery book where the main character has a condition. Well, first he has narcolepsy. He can just fall asleep. But also if his blood, if his heartbeat gets too high, it makes him pass out. And he's trying to solve a crime. Like the girl that he had a crush on that lived across the hall in his apartment building was murdered. How is he going to solve that when, if he gets intense, that he'll pass out? Here's my only problem. There's a pair of cops that are also investigating the crime, and one is really mean to him and one is very kind. I am not getting enough other potential suspects, and I'm really starting to lean towards the friendly cop is actually the killer. I hope I'm wrong, that it isn't that simple. But by issue 3, I was really hoping that they would introduce a few more plausible suspects, like, turn the tables and maybe one of his friends that we've already met could have a hidden past, which I guess actually does happen with one friend, but I'm still not suspecting them too strongly. I want to suspect some other people. Yeah, I already knew that Mike and Taki were moving to Scotland. My friend Derek Kirk Kim just moved pretty recently to London. Oh, actually, by the way, since I just mentioned Derek Kirk Kim, he's on Dave's Direct Edition podcast talking about Royals, Last Mermaid, some of his other stuff. But yeah, Mike and Taki are moving, same sort of area, Scotland. I've got a lot of friends that have moved out of the country. This past week, I got to meet up with a really good friend of mine, Martin, who grew up here but has lived for many years in Hong Kong. Super successful musician that played with the Chinese opera for many years, and now he's a dean at a really prestigious music school in Hong Kong. So he's made an amazing career for himself. But he came back, and I got to visit him. My friend Mark Englert, of course, works in comics on Capes. He moved to Poland many years ago. My friend Kerry Randolph, does great comic book artist. He moved to where did he move? Czech Republic? No. Belgium? Holy shit, maybe he moved to the Netherlands. I can't remember all of a sudden. Oops. I don't know. I haven't been to Scotland. I guess now I've got an excuse once they move. Like, I would love to go back to the UK. And now if I did, I could meet Derek and Mike and actually know some people there. That would really be nice. That would be really, really nice. Oh, I know they are. They're all like, I'm trying to remember where Kerry moved. And all of a sudden I'm totally blanking on which country he moved to. Stupid. Anyway, I like Narco. All I'm saying is I'm worried that if I've guessed the killer correctly, I'm not going to be able to enjoy this. So hopefully it does some stuff to introduce some other potential suspects or just surprise me with who the killer is. And I'm enjoying the hell out of G.I. Joe in the Energon universe. This one finds a way to make Crystal Ball cool, which I never thought was possible. Instead of being a guy, Crystal Ball in the comics and the toy line, which he was barely used in the original comics, but he's in there, he could like hypnotize people. I'm like, whatever. He just looked, it was just too dumb. But in this, he's using Energon to create these ghostly apparitions, these energy creatures that he's invented technology that does like sort of read people's minds and plays on their fears and generates things that people think are ghosts, which is honestly just, it works. It's fun. So out of all of these, a few that I recommend, a few that I'm ambivalent about, a few I don't recommend anymore. But out of the ones that I read, what do I recommend the most strongly? I'm just going to pull them back and take another look real quick. I recommend action, but almost more as like learning about kind of a cool bit of European publishing history. Battle Beast is strong, but my favorite would be between these two this week, Odin and Absolute Green Arrow. And I lean, I think, a little more towards Absolute Green Arrow being my favorite book of the week. I hope that it can continue this momentum and be a series that I love. But the first issue was really, really strong. Really, really strong. At the same time, Odin is very intriguing to me. I guess the biggest difference is that the main character and the characters in this are more detestable, so it's a little harder to connect and relate right off the bat. But maybe. Crystal Ball is very different from Dr. Mindbender. Crystal Ball was basically them finding a way to make Vincent Price into a bad guy in G.I. Joe. Let me adjust this a little. It's not quite there. That's a little better. Dr. Mindbender. Yeah, I guess I could see how it's confusing because like one uses hypnotism and the other technically is also an interrogator. But Dr. Mindbender is their mad scientist guy. Yeah, strong beginning for it. So there's a newer episode of Comic Tropes up where I talk about Sanford Green, artist I really admire. I think that was a cool episode. I've already recorded and have started editing my next episode of Comic Tropes. So I work tomorrow, but then I think maybe Tuesday and Wednesday, if I spend both days editing from beginning to end, that maybe I could have the new episode ready by Friday morning. I hope. That's my goal. So yeah, I'll have a new Comic Tropes up soon anyway, because it's, like I say, I've already recorded it and I've started editing it. What else? Oh, on this channel, maybe you already saw, but Jim and I, sounds like saying Gemini, Jim and I reviewed a bonkers horror movie that I get a kick out of called Absurd. And it's an Italian horror movie that's pretending like it was made in America with Americans. They have... it's so bonkers. A big important part of it is that it's taking place on Super Bowl Sunday evening, which brings the parents out of the house. But the Italians' idea of what the Super Bowl is very, very strange and not very accurate at all. And we are about to record another episode inspired by a movie that's coming out within, I don't know, about a week or 2 weeks from now. So we've got a couple things coming out for you there. I think you'll have fun with that. I really do. That's, I think, what I've got going on with my channels. Oh, no, I have one other idea. I was talking today. Yeah. Oh, thanks for watching. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, is Spider Noir tonight? I guess I'll watch that. I was talking to Dave, West Coast Dave Andrews, today by text, and we were talking about how sometimes it's a little annoying, some of the comments that you get, but I primarily do not engage with weird troll type comments. I leave them very much alone. But then I was like, and Dave's like, yeah, I get some of these and they really drive me nuts. I was like, yeah, you got to ignore them. But then all of a sudden I suggested an idea that could be a lot of fun. Some of these comments I just want to rip to pieces because of how dumb they are. What if I did something like that as just a little silly Patreon exclusive type video? I don't want to put it out there to everybody because that just creates additional drama. You know, I'm not trying to call people out and create drama, but I think it might be fun to really rip some of the dumbest comments apart for maybe Patreon. So we'll see. Oh, that's so nice of you. I'm trying real hard to create something with some depth and mystery here. I'm having a lot of fun and taking time. I can't wait to do mine. I can't wait to watch yours. What else? Interesting guess. The Canon Masters of the Universe. That would be an interesting movie to review with the new one coming out. Do you think that do you think Dolph Lundgren will have some sort of a cameo in the upcoming Masters of the Universe movie? I haven't heard that he would, but I kind of find it hard to believe he wouldn't, right? I mean, they have to give him some. Oh, you know what? He's going to be King Randor, isn't he? I just thought of that. He's definitely going to end up being King Randor. What else would they do? He's He-Man's dad. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just came to me. I bet. Yeah. I just think it could be fun. Yeah, I couldn't make it public because then people would just call me out as like, then I'd be like honestly exposing potentially like people to too big a mob. But if I did it to a small audience that kind of gets what I'm doing, that I'm just trying to have fun saying like, this is why this is wrong, that might work. And that could be fun. Anyway, I would strongly consider that because I like that movie. In fact, I once watched one night, like 5 movies in a row at Robert Kirkman's house. It was me, Robert, Tony Moore, Benito Cereno, Robert's wife, and Robert's other friend, Robert. And we watched 5 movies in a row, and one of them was Zombie. And if you haven't seen it, there's a scene where somebody gets their eye pierced by a huge splinter. It's pretty gnarly. It's fake, but it's gross. I have the clearest, hilarious memory of looking over at Benito Cereno, who loves horror movies, by the way. But that scene of eye trauma had him going like in silence. He was just shaking and like had his mouth open. He wanted to sort of yell. He was going. It was hilarious. The shark scene was great. We did 5 movies. We didn't expect to. That wasn't the goal. We were just having a good time, and we spent so long watching a bunch of movies. I'm trying to. The others aren't coming to me right now. One of them was definitely an Australian zombie movie where the hero is like a farmer or something, and I remember it was over the top, and he beat one of the zombies by shaking up a can of soda, throwing it at him, and I want to say slingshotting the soda, and it made him explode. I saw that ad. It was pretty funny. That was funny. No, that was real. That wasn't, he says, unless that was AI. No, that was definitely them having fun. What else? What other notes did I have for after talking about comic tropes? It's an interesting question. Hold on. Do you have any tips on how to make comics or what you look for in issue 1? Just curious. I'm trying to make my own comic. That's a really big question, to be honest. That's a really big one that I couldn't answer fully here without about 30 minutes. Sometimes I think I might do... oh, that was it. That was it. Sometimes I think I might put together some sort of classes, basically, on writing, because I have taught that before, and put that on Patreon. We'll see. But I'll give you a piece or two of advice because I can't do it all. But what do you do for writing a good number 1? I think structure becomes really important if you're writing number 1. You have to introduce all the most important characters in that issue. Like if, for instance, there's like a mystery and there's a killer, I think you kind of have to play fair and at least have a panel or something of him. And it can be misleading, but you have to have them in there. You can come back and flesh out characters, but anyone that's really important, unless there's a story reason why they come in later, you have to play fair and have them there. You have to get the premise out, but you also have to do this. You cannot bore people with too much exposition. So you have to think, like, what am I trying to tell with this story? Is it an adventure? Is it horror? Is it humor? Is it a blend of a couple things? Is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? And then why am I trying to tell this story? So distill that down. This is a father-son relationship set against a supernatural story. Okay, well, you have to start with something that's tonally what that's all about and distill it into sort of like maybe a 5-page interesting scene that engages the reader. And that's not the main story, but you have to have like a mini story sometimes. That's just one thing, is you have to play fair and you have to introduce your concept very efficiently. Be very efficient with your dialogue. Make sure that your dialogue does 2 things. It moves the story forward and it tells us something about that character's personality. That's and what they want. Really think about, what does your character want? What's blocking them from that? Introduce what they want, introduce what's keeping them from that, and introduce the start of whatever story they're going to go on that changes them in some way. Okay, that's enough. Totally recommend those books. Absolutely. Strong books. I think that the next thing in my little ticker was that I was going to just mention the finale of The Boys. Now, I see a lot of comments on social media about this, to the extent that I really think that there are a lot of bots involved in this, and anything that's like, popular seems to have some very suspicious argumentative type comments. Because I saw a certain amount of hate and like people trying to like argue against the logic of certain characters or scenes, and I found some of that stuff pretty flimsy. Maybe thinking critically and media literacy, maybe those things are dying or something. Maybe that's the issue. But I felt like I was coming across some pretty bad faith arguments against it. Now, I'm not saying that, first of all, that the finale was perfect, but I'll be honest, I liked it quite a bit. It found a way to loop back and do some things that were in the original comics, which I didn't necessarily expect. I thought that it played very fair with the characters. I liked it a lot, to be honest. I liked it a lot. Yeah, I think it was a strong finale and played fair. Here's an example of like one person giving what I thought was a bad faith argument. Maybe not bad faith, but at least not, critically thinking about the material. They were like, I hate when, at the end of a story, a woman's happy ending is having a baby. And I'd go, sure, that would make plenty of sense in general. But here's the thing. If we've already had a story arc in this show where somebody had to have an abortion because they thought that the world was not a good place to bring a child into, and then in the final episode they do have a baby, they didn't have the baby for the heck of having a baby. They think about the world differently now. That tells us something so fast, like, oh, things have changed. This person thinks differently. And I was like, so I was like, yeah, it was, I don't know. Yeah, I completely disagree, to be honest. I felt like the comics had good ideas, but I get that Garth Ennis doesn't like superheroes generally, except for Superman. But it's so easy to like make them absolute dum-dums and have them screw up and have them like fail. It's just so easy. And I just felt like Butcher was so mean-spirited. I liked some of the boys' comics and stories. I thought that Huey was pretty darn likable. But the others I didn't think were fleshed out too well. I mean, they just call Kamiko the female in the comic, and she was just next to nothing. But I thought the show was very funny. I thought that it was like the satire worked for me in that show. Making fun of big business and pharmaceutical companies, et cetera, et cetera. I liked it. So yeah, maybe I'm in the minority then. Maybe more people think like Wally does, and that is fine. Maybe I'm the weirdo, but I liked it. Anyway, I thought it was a solid finale. I don't think it's one of the all-time best. I think that there's very few shows that have nailed the ending. I mean, what's out? I think Breaking Bad was a fantastic finale. I like the Sopranos finale quite a bit. I think the end of Cheers was really good. That's going back a ways. What else was a really good finale? I don't know. There's not that many fantastic finales for TV shows, to be honest. There's not that many. I can think of plenty of bad ones. Oh, the end of Star Trek The Next Generation was really, really good, actually. That was a really good episode. It wasn't that funny to me. The idea was. Haven't watched The Shield or Leftovers, so I see that two people are saying that. I know that a lot of people like the finale of 6 Feet Under. I didn't watch that show either, but I remember that one got a lot of good reviews for being a good ending. What's a show that had a great ending? Yeah, Andor. I think Andor was a good show. I know MASH was never really my thing, but I respect how they ended it. Yeah, I liked Fringe. Fringe is an underrated one. I wouldn't. It's good. That's a good choice too. I think that like sometimes I forget some of these shows because they're not humongous in the mainstream, but The Good Place was a very good show with a very good ending. Yeah, I did like that a lot. Some shows I like the ending okay, but I wouldn't call them exceptional. Like I was talking earlier about how I really liked the shows Buffy and Angel, and I'd call those good endings, but not necessarily fantastic. Yeah, that's a good choice too. I like that. But I'm trying to think of like exceptional endings, and that's pretty elite company. I was very impressed with exactly how Breaking Bad wrapped things up, but yeah. There are a few that like really botched the ending badly, in my opinion. Plenty of people will disagree. I thought Lost totally lost the plot by the end and was a pretty poor finale. I thought Battlestar Galactica, I'm giving something like a C- to a D+. Not the worst, but pretty bad. I liked the show Enterprise okay, Star Trek Enterprise, but that is one of the worst finales I've ever encountered. Just terrible. Character assassination levels of bad. Stunningly bad. Yeah, I did an episode on it. Harrow County's cool. Harrow's County cool. I haven't seen any Evangelion. I've seen some clips. I like the art style, but I've never watched it. Maybe someday I should. Maybe. Anyway, I like The Boys. It worked for me. It worked for me quite well. Oh, Cowboy Bebop is I'd call very, very, very good. Yeah, basically exceptional. X-Files after season 6 is pretty shaky. I liked plenty of their standalone episodes all the way to the end, but yeah, the last few seasons, that terrible second movie. By the way, Disney is about to release a re-edited version of the second X-Files movie on Disney Plus. I don't know what they'll change, but they're going to release a re-edit. Aside from The Boys, oh, why am I wearing this? I mean, I went to see The Mandalorian and Grogu. There's something that's not getting great reviews, but also I wouldn't say is quite being trashed. I actually got a unique wedding ring. Does that show up? Let's see. There's probably too much light. Oh, I'll show it under here. Will that focus? How does that? Here, I'm going to take it off for a minute and see if I can show it. Oh, yeah, I loved the ending, Wally Gropius, of Twin Peaks: The Return. Loved it. So creepy. But I saw Mandalorian and Grogu. No spoilers, by the way. I never really do spoilers, or at least that's not my goal. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I'd give it like a B- or something, which I think is fine. Yeah, I think the consensus is that it's a perfectly fine popcorn flick. And honestly, I'm kind of okay with that. Some people are like worried about like, what does this represent for the future of Star Wars or something? I don't give a shit. Here's how the box office did compared to other movies. I don't care how the box office did. I got to see it. That's all I care about. But I got myself a unique ring when I got married. Is that going to focus? There's my ring. Okay. It's a Mandalorian themed wedding ring. And I joked that if this movie was bad, I was going to be like taking it off and like throwing it down the street. I don't feel like I need to do that. I had fun. Could it have been better? In plenty of ways, absolutely. It could have been deeper. It could have had more effects or something like that. There's lots of things that it could have potentially done to be better. No question. Was it bad? No, it was not bad. Was it only middling? I'd call it a little better than that. It's an adventure. I personally think some people look at Mandalorian a little differently than I have chosen to look at it. I hear it compared a lot to it's kind of like a Western. And it is in some ways. It really is. But I think what it really is at its heart is a samurai story. I look at it and I see echoes of Lone Wolf and Cub. It's a Ronin wandering the land, righting wrongs, and training his child to be like him. And I think that that's fine. Like, you just introduce, in other words, he's a stoic, amazing warrior. And the challenge comes with, he comes across despicable people that make life difficult for society, and they find a way to get it. Oh, yep. Sorry. Yeah. And I think it could lean into that more and benefit from it. I think it could lean into that and go, what does Lone Wolf and Cub do best? Like, what are some of its best stories? How could we transfer those stories into a sci-fi setting, but still tell the same core moral or have the same bad guy twist? I think that would work. Anyway, I enjoyed it plenty for what it was. I did not feel like I'd wasted my time, and I would recommend seeing it if you like Star Wars or if you enjoyed The Mandalorian in the past. I would say it's very new audience friendly, to be honest. You don't need to have watched any Star Wars before to enjoy the movie. If you have, you might get amused by some of the member berries that it definitely is throwing at you. Hey, AT-ATs! These characters were on one of the cartoons. I don't give a shit about that stuff too much, but I thought it was better than fine. I think if I give it a B-, that's very good. I'm not against the idea of aiming higher. I would love it if it was better. And like I say, it does have problems. Is it a deep story with personal connections for Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin? No. Does it change the characters in some way, their understanding of the world, so that, you know, Din Djarin or Grogu are different at the end of the movie than they are at the beginning? No. I think it should have done some of those. But sometimes it is okay to have an adventure, and that's okay. I would love for it to be more, but I don't regret seeing it, and I probably will watch it again. Whereas I can say, even though I've considered it, I've never rewatched Rise of Skywalker. I saw that in the theater, and I was like, didn't love that. Never rewatched that one. Don't really like it. Wish I liked it. Haven't ever gone back to watch it again. Yeah, I saw Mortal Kombat 2 to whoever asked, and I don't know if that's like a better movie. I would say it's not. That I guess I liked Mandalorian and Grogu more than Mortal Kombat 2, but Mortal Kombat 2 does actually have a character arc for the main character. I won't say who I think is the main character, I guess, because maybe that would spoil it. But I also did like the fight scenes in Mortal Kombat 2, of which there are at least 10, which is a lot. No, I haven't seen Bad Batch. Wait, I think I might have seen one episode. I watched the first episode of Maul Shadow Lord. I should probably finish it. I wasn't super hooked onto it, but I did appreciate that they were doing something a little unique with the animation. I thought that was kind of cool. I like the character of Maul plenty. I'm not against watching that. I know a bunch of people really like it, so I'm sure it's pretty good. What else did I say? Oh, I know what I should tell you guys about. Okay. Here, I'm going to take the banner off, actually, because we're pretty far into the show. Like, no one's jumping in going, I'm lost. Two things. One I'm going to start with is I got a game for myself. I haven't bought a video game in a long time. First of all, I definitely lost my Nintendo Switch in the flood. That's okay. Whatever. I thought that my Xbox was lost in the flood, but it wasn't. So this new Lego Batman Legends of the Dark Knights game came out. And I really like Lego games. They can be a little challenging, but honestly, they're kind of just zen for me. I just go in, I play the missions, I go back and I collect everything. And I find it very refreshing. I find it very relaxing. I don't let myself play a lot of video games because, I've always got something to edit or write. But sometimes you do need mental health, and I see a benefit to that. So I went downstairs, tried the Xbox. Oh, it works. Okay, it survived. I downloaded the Lego Batman game. I've only played it a little, but I like it. I like it quite a bit, okay? Very, very funny. Very, very funny. I meant fun. It has some funny elements. So maybe that was some sort of weird... what do you call it? I don't know what I'm trying to say here. When you say something by accident, like a Freudian slip, sort of. Yeah, maybe it was sort of like a Freudian slip. Anyway, so I like it. It gets my approval. It gets my. I think it gets. Potentially, I need to play more of it, but it might get 3 out of 3 thumbs. Might get a 3 out of 3 thumb rating. Thank you, King. What? I don't know. Dusk. I was glad that my Xbox survived, and I think my PlayStation 5 did too. So I did have all 3 consoles. So the Switch didn't, but you know, a lot didn't survive the flood, and it just is what it is. But I was happy to get to play a little of that, and so that was fun. That was fun. Video games are expensive right now. I did not get the deluxe edition because it was like $80 or $90, and it was already $70 for the main one. And I was like, oh, you know, should I, Chris? You know, we're trying to be smart with our money. We're still doing like all the repairs. But I ultimately said, like, look, I've sold a bunch of stuff to like friends and stuff to make a little extra money, stuff that I decided I didn't have to keep, just certain toys and things. I was like, I'm going to use a little of that money. Oh, I also got a tiny bit of money back from taxes. Even though I owed money, I guess I overpaid. So I got a check back from my taxes. And so I decided I'd go ahead and get myself a game. I hope that wasn't too irresponsible, but I feel like it was good for my mental health. I do. And I'm enjoying it. I think if you have any love for Lego or Batman, that you should give it a try. No. It's a possibility. No. Clone Wars, I know, has been like, you know, a lot of stuff has been built off of Clone Wars, and I've got lots of friends that tell me Clone Wars is very good, but it's also very long with a lot of episodes, and I'm like, that's just a big commitment that I'm not sure I can commit to. Do a claim sale and spend the proceeds on Tomodachi Life so we can make a Tropes Island and see if Snowflame will fall in love with NFL Super Pro. I'm going to have to look up Tomodachi Life. So that's like Friend Life? Friend Life? I don't know it. Definitely plan on watching Backrooms. I've watched a bunch of the original YouTube videos, so I like the lore in the background, and I'm curious to see what I forget the name of the creator, but I'm curious to see what he does with the film version. Yeah, I'll see it. I might do at some point. I've been thinking about that a little. I've got like, you know, now that I've lost so many comics and stuff, I'm like, maybe I should just sell off a bunch of my comics and just, you know, whatever. Like, you know, gather some keys and just sell a bunch of it. I'm thinking about it, to be honest. I'm giving some strong thought to doing a claim sale. I don't know. It's not like I wouldn't be necessarily doing it out of desperation to get money at this point or anything, but more just maybe I don't need to keep it all. We'll see. It's something I'm thinking about. And then I could either do it here, I could try Whatnot. I just don't know. I'm thinking of it just like as an experiment to try it. And I don't know if I'd enjoy it all that much, but I think I'm curious enough to try it at some point. We'll see. It's something I've been giving a little bit of thought to. If I don't want to like keep all my comics now that I've got weird gaps in them from the flood. Oh, so I want to recommend something to you guys on YouTube that I thought was really, really cool. Has anybody here ever watched the sort of YouTube documentary shows of Reckless Ben? That's the YouTube channel, Reckless Ben. He's busted like cults and stuff like that, and he tends to do them as like multi-part big documentary series. He had a really interesting, successful one where he was unveiling and, you know, showing that this one guy that claims to have the scariest haunted house in the world is bullshitting and just wasting people's money and using it to maybe do his fetish of abusing people. It's a really interesting documentary series. Anyway, Reckless Ben is currently got part 1 up of an ongoing series where he's exposing the company Bricks and Minifigs for stealing like a $200,000 Lego Star Wars collection. Basically, it's this super, super interesting documentary where a guy's father and him had collected the world's largest Star Wars Lego set. And the father either got sick or passed away, and the son, who's an adult, decided to sell them. And he went to his local Bricks and Minifigs and had them do a contract to sell them on consignment. Now, after that happened, the owners of that store, it's a franchise, if you don't know, it's a franchise. The owners of that store decided that they were going to sell it to somebody else. So corporate came in and just took over and shut them down early, and they kept that consigned inventory. Shades of the Diamond story, right? Diamond Distribution, who still has all these comics for people. And there's security footage of like the original owner going like, hey, I've got this list of all these things that I need to return that were on consignment that we've got, in storage here. Like they need to go back. And the guy's like, that's up to corporate now. Don't worry about it. It's not your problem. We're gonna. Yeah. He did. Reckless Ben did one on McKay Manor. Fantastic series. Fantastic. Anyway, as soon as this happens, the guy has been getting like shot back and forth between the new store owner and corporate, each saying, no, you have to talk to the other person. The police won't help him at all. I don't know like exactly why, but they refuse to investigate. It is a crazy story. And this guy, Reckless Ben, gets into this, and he's so funny. He creates real companies that are absolutely ridiculous just to sort of mess with people and get more information. So it's funny here and there. You are definitely rooting for them to get this guy's Lego back, his Lego collection back. It is a wild story. Again, it's Reckless Ben. I don't think part 2 is up yet, maybe on his Patreon, but it is really captivating to watch and just makes you really, really root for this company to get taken down and for this guy to just get his property back. So I hope he does. Something tells me that if they're doing this many parts and they've been doing it for this long, that they will be ultimately successful. I really hope that there's a happy bit of closure to it. So just a recommendation. So that's funny. I would recommend 2 YouTube things that I found this week. Reckless Ben and his investigation of this Lego scam. And I think that's the one that this is happening at, to be clear, Beowulf. I think that's the one. It's definitely somewhere in Oregon. And then second thing I'd recommend on YouTube is Hanging with Dr. Z, where comedian Dana Gould dresses up in full Dr. Zaius outfit and interviews celebrities and comedians. So 2 things that I'd recommend. Is there anything else to talk about? I don't know. That might do it. We've had a pretty good show tonight, I think. Some interesting news, some great comics, some interesting media to riff on. And as always, I really appreciate y'all being here. Means a lot to me. I always have fun chatting. This is part of what connects me to comics, is getting to talk directly to part of the comic book community. Any comics that came out this week that I missed that you would recommend? I'd like to ask that one. Thank you. That's nice of you. I'm getting great comments and stuff, but it has got like abysmal views. But that's the algorithm sometimes. That doesn't bother me that much. Like I say, I've already recorded the next episode. I'm already, I would say, about a seventh of the way through editing it, which I think is good. It's not really much of anything, Sheldon. My idea was to draw the characters from Supernatural. Like, what if one was, like tied up here and the other one was sneaking up and we could see his reflection, but I'm going to draw some sort of a monster here that we should be able to see in the reflection as well, but we don't. How I Make Comics by Kim Deitch came out last week. Okay, Kim Deitch, cool. Yeah, I hope you do. The Action 50th Anniversary Special, very, very fun. I think the cool thing about it is before each chapter, how it gives you a brief bit of history about it. Oh, okay. Yeah, the bad one was in Salem. Okay, that's fair. Oh, well, that's scary to hear. Sorry to hear that you were in the ER, whether it was you or someone you know. Hope it's not super serious. I'm going to have to catch up on Kaito 84 at some point. I mean, I had him on the show 2 weeks ago, but we didn't talk about Spawn. We talked about his new creator-owned title, If Destruction Be Our Lot, and I really liked his ideas and philosophy. Hookjaw. Star Trek Strange New World Season 4 will premiere globally on July 23rd. Good. I like that show a lot. I'm going to miss it. I think it's quite good. Even with the areas I'm spotting in black, I'm intentionally doing it in a scratchy hatching style instead of just filling it in with, say, I don't know, a big Sharpie or some tool like that. I want to have some texture to it, and these are windows, so I want to try to indicate that a little, even though it's really dark. Just have like a hint that there are reflected bits all over. So I don't know if I'm accomplishing that, but there is thought being put into the way I'm approaching each element of this page. So yeah, and I'm having fun with it. I'm trying to take my time and just noodle around with the details. It's fun. It was me, but I'm fine now. Well, thank God for that. That's, whew. Oh my God. I'm sorry to hear that something serious like that's going on. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but I feel like my wife is doing better right now than she's been doing in a little while. It's nice. I don't want to overshare somebody's story that's not mine, but you guys may know that Chrissy had hemolytic anemia that caused us to have to, rush home from Japan January of 25. So that's a while back now. And she had to be on steroids for a lot of that to keep her oxygen in her blood at like a survivable level. It was very scary. But she's finally gotten off of it. She's weaned off before and had to keep going back on it, but she's finally off of it, and her hemoglobin levels, knock on wood, are good. Oh, I'm just trying to be hopeful. She's been doing some amazing things, reorganizing our house, and she cooked me the most amazing meal the other day. I got to tell you about this. This is incredible. She calls it the pizzadilla. It starts with a quesadilla, like she's got a shell, the quesadilla shell. And there is cheese and chicken that she's made with like various spices and stuff. So there's some flavor to it. But then she also adds pesto and some pepperoni and some fresh tomatoes. And like, it tastes incredible. It is such a perfect meal for the spring season because it feels light and refreshing. Oh my God. And it's like a little crispy on the outside because of how she cooks it. And obviously, like, there's cheese and, tomatoes. So it's like chewy inside. Oh, it's just amazing. I've never done an episode dedicated to Sal Buscema. I've talked about his brother, and I would talk about Sal. I would consider doing that. Yeah, the pesto makes it so good. Oh my God, it's just an incredible meal. She's a really great cook, really inventive. So she'd probably start a painting channel before she started a cooking channel, but she legit could do either. And I've told her she would definitely have good content that would excite people. I've had a blast tonight, folks. I think I'm going to wrap it up. And so with luck, I should have you a new Comic Tropes episode this week. And then next week, we should have you a new trash movie bonanza. So there's a bunch of stuff on the way. I'm going to try to make something exclusive for my folks on Patreon as well before the month wraps up. Working on a bunch of different things. As far as recommendations, again, I recommend Absolute Green Arrow. I recommend Odin. I recommend Battle Beast in Action. I recommend Psy Dimensional Rivals #5. I recommend Lego Batman Legends of the Dark Knight. And I kind of recommend Mandalorian and Grogu. All right. That's plenty. That's plenty of content for everybody. Oh, and of course, those 2 YouTube channels I mentioned before. Take care, everybody. Keep reading comics. And tell you what, you haven't gotten one of these in a little while. So let me just give you ye old devil salute. Thanks for watching. See you real soon. Bye.